welcome. I'm Dan McDermott. Welcome to Google Plus Week. It's been a horrific day in Connecticut, and I thought for a while, I don't have anything to say. I don't know what to say. I walked around with sort of a post 9/11 days. We talked about it with my friends, some of whom are here, and it was just, it was an awful day. But I thought, should we do the show? And if it had been early this afternoon, I would have probably postponed it. But I thought, I'm not going to let this guy win in this case, and we need to move on. And our thoughts go out to the families and friends and those children and their classmates. So it's just horrific, and I'm not sure what to say. But we have a special guest with us tonight, and I would like to welcome Mr. Richard Gingras. Welcome, sir, head of Google News. And before, I'm sure you've had a very busy day over at Google News today. And but earlier this week, there was some good news and lots of stuff we're going to talk about with Google. But what I wanted to do was just sort of show our folks what you're going to talk about, and that is the new Google News on tablets. Now, what you see here on the left, you see the older version, which is great. And then on the right, you see the new tablet version. So you've got your top stories by default. This is not an app. This is just the web version, news.google.com. And so from the beginning, you're at top stories, and then you can either slide your finger across the screen to get to US, and then you slide it again, or to get to your local area, and then tech is next. And you can, I think, order these business. And I see in business, Apple has taken down the entire U.S. economy. But that's a different topic, I see. Their stock. But anyway, Richard, tell us. This is really cool. I know you're excited about it. So tell us what the deal is.
Well, first of all, and again, thank you very much for being here. Yeah, it is indeed a sad day. Of course, in the news business, it is about how do we best, bring people the most up-to-date information about events as they're happening. So clearly, this is in a sense days like today are really at the heart of what we try to do. So with Google News, I think people probably understand what we're about. Our mission basically is indeed that. How do we at any one point in time give users the best sources of information, the best articles about a story, such that they can be well informed, get different perspectives, go deep, understand how people are expressing themselves, whether it's important traditional news sources of information or social expressions. That's what we try to do, and we're always trying to figure out how do we move that ball forward. Also, Google News, for those of you who aren't aware, is not just news.google.com. We're basically this underlying engine that fuels all Google properties with the freshest information about current events, whether that's what you do in Google search or at news.google.com. Combined in doing that, by the way, we put news in front of about 1 billion unique users each week around the globe in some 72 editions in 45 languages. All, of course, machine-driven, and in doing so, drive, at last count, in excess of 6 billion visits to news sites each month. So what we're doing with the tablet app is just part of our continued progression of how do we advance the model, particularly in this realm when people are using different devices to consume, interestingly, more news than ever before. Through various means. And so this is one step in one of those directions with tablets. I couldn't help but notice recently that Pew study that came out a few months ago, that pointed out that on tablets and mobile devices, people are consuming tremendous amounts of news. And interestingly, are consuming, most of that consumption is not in apps, but in the browser. Right? They're visiting various sites, they're following links to various sites. And so, in a sense, one of our objectives here was how do we make that tablet experience more powerful, in a sense, more compelling, and even more fun. So we're very pleased to do it, very pleased to get it out. We'll obviously, as we always do at Google, continue to tune it and improve it as things go forward. But I personally, this new web app has really changed how I use Google News. Now I'm much more inclined, frankly, to, in a sense, almost browse Google News from end to end, which it wasn't as easy to do before. That natural ability to swipe section by section, or if you dive deep into a story, there are those explore in depth links on every story. You can then just browse story to story. So it's a great way to get a sense of what's going on. It's a great way to see all the coverage from all those sources, and then obviously to click on those and consume those stories as well. So again, it's one of the many things we're trying to do to continue to improve what Google News does in keeping people informed. We were very pleased to see the response. We obviously did a fair amount of testing before we released this, and are going to just continue to keep at it, continue to polish and improve. So at the same time, we're always looking forward to see what kind of feedback we get from our users.
Let me ask you, and then we'll go to Alan and the rest of the panel. You came from a legacy journalism background, magazine, right? And that's your.
Well, interestingly, I'm a bit of an odd duck. I mean, I'm in a sense a long-term product guy, as it says in Technology Guys. It says on my profile, I've been online since the days of steam-powered modems. My first online service was a broadcast teletext-based service, meaning TV-based, in 1980. I did Apple's first online service, eWorld, in the early 90s. So I'm frankly much more of an online product guy than anything else. However, news has always been a huge area of interest. Back in the 90s, I did manage to arrange the seed funding for Salon.com when it was founded in 1995. And indeed, a few years ago, agreed to go back there and ran Salon Media for a couple of years because given all the disruption that's going on in the news industry, I really wanted to kind of, in a sense, get my hands dirty, understanding the full nature of the problem. So I ran Salon.com for a couple of years before Google reached out and convinced me to come back to Google. So, in a sense, what we're doing now with Google News and Google Plus, we're really at the heart of this evolution of the news ecosystem. So frankly, as I often say, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world to be where I am right now, exploring the kinds of opportunities and challenges that we're looking to address.
Okay, let me go. Alan, did you have a question or?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's start with Alan.
Now, you mentioned when you were discussing what you did that news touches everyone worldwide. You've got a whole bunch of international access. It's been we've covered over the past few weeks and months some of the problems that you've been having in a number of countries. Germany and Brazil are the two that come to mind, but I noticed in passing that it sounded like Google had come to an agreement with, and unfortunately I missed which country within the past week you guys have come to an agreement with. Can you talk a little bit about the countries that you've had problems with, where you're having successes, and how all of that has been going?
Well, I can't really talk about the specifics because many of those things are ongoing, and there's a lot of stuff that I just can't get into.
Understand.
But, at core is this. As I said, we know that, this is a very disruptive time for the news industry, for the traditional news industry. For those of you who've heard me talk about this stuff, I personally am hugely optimistic about the future of news and the future of journalism. But clearly, the internet has disrupted the basic distribution models of traditional news organizations. And clearly that's very hard and challenging, and we understand that. And I feel deeply as they struggle to figure out how they evolve forward. What we do see, obviously, in various countries is various attempts, I think in some senses I look at it as, how do we sort of protect ourselves as this disruption occurs? We do our best to work those things out, to work with publishers, to work with governments, to try to help figure out how we can best move things forward without in any way sacrificing the core principles of Google with our search product, with our news product. And so far we've been successful at addressing those, and we'll continue to do our best to do so.
If you had advice to give to, if some news organization, paper, whoever came to you and said, look, we see things are changing, what would be your advice to us to keep up with the times and to make money? The pun isn't intended there.
Let me just append that question by saying, especially in a small market, if someone is...
It says Dan the journalist.
I own 2 newspapers. I publish 2 newspapers in Virginia. And so that's a problem. If you're New York City, you can start an online blog. But here's to give a practical example, Richard. For me to send a reporter to cover a town council meeting, it'll cost me $25 to $50, say $100 if it's a seasoned pro who's there all the time. What do you say to me as I grapple with this? Because we both know one single that story online is going to make pennies in the local community because you don't care what's going on in Front Royal, Virginia. So how do we, it's going digital, how do we do it? And then after this, we'll go to Jeff and then Harold.
Well, you've asked, it's a great question. And with me, I'll try to keep this brief, but I could go on for an hour on that question. But obviously I won't tonight. If I try to reduce it to the core, I'd say a couple of things. I would first of all say, look at this carefully and recognize that the ecosystem overall is almost completely different than it was 20 years ago. Everything from the underlying distribution models to the very nature of the medium and how people consume it. And all of that is important. The model of a newspaper was born in particularly the period of extremely successful newspapers was born in an era where, for various reasons, you had very powerful control over local distribution. That's very different in this world. So my core advice to these organizations is, A, recognize that you're in a very different ecosystem, that people are consuming in very different ways on very different devices. They're increasingly consuming through various other means rather than necessarily going directly to the news site, right? The average news site today, if you're doing a good job at how you manage, how you drive and pull in audience, you're seeing 25 to 30% of your traffic come from search engines like Google and Google News. You're seeing anywhere from 15 to 30% of your traffic coming from social networks, right? They're coming to you through other people. The truth is that most news sites are now seeing that most traffic is not coming to the front page, but coming to the story page, right? What that suggests, for instance, is a very different approach about what's the nature and purpose of a website. So what I tell folks is, if you understand the differences in the ecosystem, what you really need to do is, you obviously try to maintain as best you can your traditional news product, but very separately and differently look at the new ecosystem and rethink everything.
Okay.
And I mean that completely, from what is the structure of your product and the underlying business model, how you build your revenue, what indeed is the future of the narrative form of the news article? What's the future of how you properly leverage crowdsourcing to help you do things which maybe economics don't support in this new ecosystem that they might have supported in the past? As I said, I could go on and on and on, but what I think it is a very challenging environment, obviously, for traditional news organizations.
Okay.
But the best way to get there is indeed to do a complete rethinking.
Maybe one day we can get you and like Jeff Jarvis or somebody and we can do a separate hangout, because this is a fascinating topic with so much interest, and it's a serious problem. And a lot of the little guys like me, I don't even have any ads on my website because it's so little money.
That's right.
But let me go to, but we're a print and we give the paper away. So I've just put the whole PDF up online, and if so I'm giving them the free album. I'm not breaking it up into separate things, which is probably awful for you guys. Let me go to, I think we can try to squeeze 2 more questions if we got time. Jeff, go ahead, please.
Yeah, one quick question. What's, just to be, I was a little bit confused. What's the difference between news.google.com and, say, Google Currents? Are they aggregating it the same way? Are they using the same sourcing? Or is
Google Currents is a bit of a different animal. They are a large part. They are a platform they're almost a newsstand platform for publishers at little or no cost to build online products appropriately for different devices. Google News does support them. For instance, they've added a new breaking news section to Google Currents. They do look at our underlying signals to do that. But they're much more of in a sense, a platform for publishers to build upon versus, in a sense, Google News is much more, again, how do we help connect you to the best sources of information about whatever your interest might be.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to Harold Carey, who has a question.
Yeah. Yes. My question is that right on the top here of the new browser, it says top stories, U.S. and Idaho. Now, I didn't know Idaho was such a hotbed of news. So are we talking we're talking customizing this, right?
So I think what's happening, and where are you right now?
I'm in Idaho.
You are in Idaho.
Yes.
Are you signed in?
Well, yes, Idaho is one of my favorites that I put on the news thing, and it seems to be third on the list now on this new thing.
Well, basically what we do there, and you can change the order. If you go into the personalization area of the tablet, which is on the far left, you can actually swipe over to it. And not only can you change the sections, but you can take and reorder them. So, if you've set up a local section, then that's there. If you're not even signed in, we actually try to guess where you are and create one for you. But that's all. The order of the sections is entirely in your control. So if you want, we took our best sense was, you're interested in what's going on overall, and then you're interested in what's going on in my country and what's going on in my locale, and then on from there. But if your preferences are different, feel free to reorder them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and you had a comment or question, Alan, and I think he's got to go. He's got another.
I think we had a great comment that Anthony had up a moment ago, which hasn't shown up.
Oh, Anthony, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go to ahead. Anthony. And Anthony was asking a question from Jason Salas.
Yeah, so I have it. Jason Salas says, I'm interested in hearing what went through Richard's mind the first time he got wind of the daily launching and then ultimately being scuttled.
That's a great question. Dodge, Richard, dodge.
I said back then when the iPad came out that, and this was before I came back to Google, but I said that I feared that the iPad for publishers, for traditional publishers, would be a fatal distraction. And I said that because I felt that a lot of folks were looking at the iPad more as a way of recreating their old models, that they could create a product that people would pay for, they could create a product that would allow them to display those big ads that their older magazine models supported. Because otherwise, unfortunately, those content apps, in many cases, they're siloed content experiences, and you're outside of the flow of the web and how the web works. And I think, fortunately or unfortunately, that has proven to be largely the case. I'm not at all surprised at the daily, at the course of the daily. I thought it was fairly inevitable, and particularly in their case, given the huge amount of money they put into it. I think it's unfortunate, but that's why I say about you really have to look at the future in terms of how does the new ecosystem work? How do people consume how do the newer generations of people consume content today, and really work your model to that? And I think, unfortunately, things like the daily were more about opportunities to recreate the past on a device that they felt somehow made that possible.
Richard, I know you got to go. On that daily question, last thing, there's a lot of criticism. My view was they made a big mistake by choosing a single footprint and not expanding to Android tablets and other devices and the web. I thought that was insane. And I think it was too much commodity content and not enough exclusive stuff. And the stuff was basically lost, You couldn't find it on Google News or Yahoo News, or where people are getting their news. They're getting it from aggregators now. And if you're
That's what I mean about they're being, in a sense, out of the flow of the web ecosystem, right? They weren't taking any advantage of that. So I think that was an issue. I think your point about commodity content was an issue. You know, in a sense, unless you're offering something of very high value, it's very hard asking people to pay for it. You know, people say, well, the Wall Street Journal is very successful in charging, and I say, indeed they are, but they offer very high value content to a very targeted audience for people who have both the ability to pay and often the business rationale to pay. That's quite a bit different from general consumer interest media, where if anything today, if there's a problem with the economics of news, in a sense, is that there is too much of it. It is, in a sense, commodity oriented. There's not much that was covered in the daily that you could not find elsewhere. So unless they were able to build value in their personality or attitude in some fashion, it was very hard for me to understand how people would see enough value that they'd be willing to pay for it.
Richard Gingras is head of Google News, and this was awesome. We could go on for hours, but I know you got other stuff to do. But thank you so very much for stopping by for the first time. I hope you'll come back, and if you're, I'll communicate with you about that. Would be an interesting topic. Maybe get someone like Jeff Jarvis.
I'd be pleased to do that. Jeff and I have done that sort of thing before, and I think it's a tremendously interesting topic of conversation. And as I said, bottom line, I personally am very optimistic about the future of news and the future of journalism. But for me, in a sense, that comes down to the simple fact that, you know, what the internet has allowed is people to express themselves more than we've ever had in the history of civilization. And so to me, it comes down to math. We've got more people creating more content than ever before, more people who have an interest in doing so. That doesn't mean it's all great quality stuff, right? There's still wheat to chaff ratios. But my great confidence is even today, there's more wheat than there ever was before. So I think it's a fascinating conversation and look forward to continuing it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on and look forward to doing it again in the future.
Awesome. He'll be with us every week from now on. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks an awful lot, folks. This is really fun. I'd actually love to continue. It's a great conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. We appreciate it. We have a fun panel, and it's too bad you didn't get to meet all of them. But
thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take
All
care.
right, that was awesome. Richard Gingras, head of Google News. I think we've had everyone except Larry and Sergey on now, and
We're working on it.
we're working on it. You're invited still, Larry. He's mad because I beat him at Sudoku. Okay, up next, we're going to go to Alan, who has a few things to mention. Google was busy. Alan, I don't know. I guess we'll start with the first thing. He was great.
Now, now, Pam.
Are we actually going to go through the entire list?
We are going to go through the entire list, but first we have another warning. This is more in Ronnie's camp, but I wanted to warn people that once again, YouTube has a scheduled outage for Monday night, starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Go look it up in your corner of the world. And hopefully we're going to see some even more juicy stuff coming out of this. Any thoughts, any other warnings?
Bye, Ronnie.
Yeah, I was just have to take off in just a second, so let me throw out something out there. I think the YouTube folks got a lot of feedback about their update to their site, and they usually do, but they are trying to make some adjustments, and that's why I'm thinking we're having such a quick update again. And I'm also hoping that, this is just me guessing, but I'm hoping that the ability to connect to the page that didn't seem to happen yet might be part of what this next thing is.
You're just eternally optimistic. Is that the deal, Ronnie? Yeah, I know. I am too.
But they're throwing out stuff every single day. I mean, this last week has been incredible, but I kind of have to go. So it's been a fun week, hasn't it?
Yep, it certainly has. And we're going to cover 24 of the most recent features on Google+. And in fact, it's going to be 26 because there are two after that didn't come out. So today, in the Season 4 shipping announcement, they announced first 18 and then 6 more new features. And we're going to go through these. Some of them we're going to go through quickly, and others we're going to rip to shreds. And I hope our panel has all thoroughly tested every single one of these 24 features.
No, unfortunately, my phone was dead, and I couldn't even update the mobile. I wanted to, though.
But I'm relying on the iOS people because the first chunk is that both Android and iOS got updates today. on the Android side, we're now able to edit our profiles mobily. Something they called an easier way to author content. I don't know, has anyone else played with it? I played with it briefly, and I'm not sure I'd call it easier. I might call it prettier. I might call it more obnoxious.
Are the smiley
No, but we'll get to the smiley thing in a second.
Okay. I apologize.
No, we'll get there in a second. Oh, trust me on that one. So we have this easier way to author content, which, I don't know, it seemed pretty much the same. Did anyone else try it?
I didn't try it.
Pretty much the same. You have to, different looks.
Mike, your audio has
No, it's
gone
Jeff.
out the window. It was Jeff that...
Yeah, I guess. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Did they give any explanation why it is easier?
No, well, they just kind of said easier, and in the screenshots it showed some neat new icons, which are neat new icons, but I don't know.
The iOS Google Plus app is definitely slicker.
Well, we'll get to you guys. We'll get to you guys in a second. The subtle
So what
notice.
is it you're talking about?
Go look at the
Android
list. We
people.
have this list.
Android people.
Right now we're on Android.
Let's get rid of the Android people first.
Subtle notice when there is new stuff to read. I have no idea what that is supposed to mean at all. And then 2 changes for Android and iOS, and you're going to be able to talk now, Sreek. You can now subscribe to mobile notifications for your favorite circles. So what this sounds like to me is that you can change the notification setting for that circle. It's not clear if that's actually just related to mobile or not, or if this is the same notification setting.
Can you see that?
Not
No.
well, but yeah.
So it is like you can have subscriptions set up for each circle now.
Have you played with that and see that if it changes the notification setting on the desktop version as well, or if this is a true... Whose phone is ringing?
I mean, all it does is basically, it's like your personal slider, but for circles, and it's automatically going to ping you every time someone in that circle posts something.
Right, but we had that before on a circle-wide basis, and it's not clear if this is mobile only or if this affects the desktop as well.
I haven't tested it, but I think it is probably mobile only. While we are having this chat, I'm going to actually test it. Go ahead with the next one.
Okay, so the next one it's the big one. It's the one that I yelled at them about last week, and here it is this week. Communities!
Told you.
Yeah. Okay, you told me. Fine. Like I said, I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. It's not like they actually fixed any of the problems with communities, but now at least the mobile people get to suffer along with the rest of us.
They fixed a few problems. Get it right. They fixed a few.
Nice.
No, but I mean, I played around a little bit with the communities. It seems to work, as well as you expect on the mobile platform. Has anyone seen anything massively great, massively bad? I see 2 people raising their hands.
Can I quickly intervene? I think I just set one of the circles subscription hour on mobile, and I got an alert on my Google Plus on my Chrome browser online basically. So I believe even if you change it over here, it reflects on the web.
Okay, so it's just a notification setting. That's fine, and that kind of makes sense, but it'd be nice if they actually made that clear.
Sure. They believe that the users are very intelligent and figure out things by themselves.
They don't know their users, do they? Michael, what did you have to say? Ellis.
I was trying to decide if it was what I expect or what you expect, because those might be very different levels of satisfaction.
Well, what do you expect? And did it meet your level of satisfaction?
Well, no, actually, I don't use any of these things on the mobile devices because I really despise using a mobile device for internet anything. So I only ever use a computer or a Chromebook. So the fact that they made a big bunch of announcements on mobile means nothing to me.
Well, do you think it might make you try it again, Michael?
I've considered the idea, Dan, of a tablet, but really, honestly, only since I've been working with you guys and listening to the raves about how great some of the tablets are. So it's made me think maybe I should reconsider my obstinance.
We all agree.
So we did have this question coming in. Did they enable Bluetooth devices on Android phones and Hangouts like the iOS version has had for over a year?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, it certainly wasn't in the release announcements. So let me cover the rest of them, jumping out of order a little bit. We had this is just a great lead into the next one. When I saw I had communities on mobile, I set my mood to happy. Yes, welcome to AOL 1990. We can now have moods. What idiot did this? Really?
Play devil's advocate. It might be an easier way, as Craig Schiff likes to say, get the teenagers in there, and then once you get the teenagers in there, it'll start going viral.
There's merit to that. There's only one problem. It doesn't work.
It started working later on today, actually.
It's a great feature that works if you're on Android only, but my understanding is that the iOS version doesn't see the moods, and the desktop people don't see the moods.
Well, wait a minute. If you, it shows a link, and if you have the, the Chrome extension that shows images when you hover over the link, it works. I'm being extremely sarcastic.
Facetious, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Well, no, I think once again, this is a fine feature. I really have fine, great. I really don't care that this feature is there. I can see it has merit. It doesn't hurt me in any way.
There are uses for it, Alan, like for niche groups, localities, for tech support communities. If you have a tech support question, it'd be nice to be able to go into a community for that topic.
Dan,
we're talking about
moods right now.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Moods.
Oh, geez. I thought
it's kind of like Google Effects, I mean, you used it for a day and then all right, I'm done with it.
Like, Dan is very confused right now.
Yeah, he was so down on it, I thought he was talking about communities.
Oh, no, I'll be down on communities all by
myself. Come on, Alan. There could be a feature out there that somebody likes. It cannot be an all.
Don't get me wrong. It's a fine feature. What I think this points out, though, is that the desktop team and the mobile team aren't talking to each other. Well, they keep coming with features that are incompatible.
One of them's sad, the other one's happy.
I have to say, it's one thing for the mobile app to not do things that the desktop version does, but for there to be things, with possibly the exception of Messenger or whatever they call it, for
they
the
call
mobile.
It Messenger.
Yeah, I thought so. I think but for the mobile app to do things that the desktop application can't do is just ridiculous.
I think there's probably a reason, because your moods can change on the move, right? You're not carrying your laptop around and then whatever. What I'm trying to say is,
Streak! This feature was borrowed from AOL 1990, before cell phones. This is not new.
Yeah, but I'm talking.
And we had desktops back then where we posted our moods.
No, I agree, but what I'm saying is now it's mobile. Everything is mobile. I'm driving my car, I have a road rage, and I'm in a bad mood. I set my mood to road rage or whatever it is.
So you can't have a bad day at work and set your mood to...
You can. You still have your cell phone with you. You can set it up in a cell phone.
I hope you're not going to pull up when you're driving in bad traffic and you're angry, Streak. I hope you're not going to open your Google Plus app to set your mood and hit a school bus or something.
Maybe the red light.
Okay, I'm not going to belabor this any further, but I am going to point out that one of the things that this did, in order to support this mood feature, in order to get it to work at all, they had to bring animated GIFs to the Android phone, and that's another feature that they brought. So that actually, there's I guess you could call it a positive side effect.
Do you think they're going to bring the emoticons to the desktop?
We already have them. Oh, you mean the moods or emoticons? Because we already have emoticons on the desktop, don't we?
No.
You can type like a little colon hyphen.
In chat, you do on the desktop.
I mean, it would be easy to make it work on the desktop because it's just an API, a simple API thing, right?
It's not even. It's just translating things.
I mean, even I can never pronounce the name of I don't even know what the pronunciation is, but of that other video sharing site. Now their videos, show up in the player like the YouTube ones do. So I mean, I would think that it would be relatively easy to make it work the way it should work.
Alan, just set your mood to grouchy, and you won't have to touch it again. You can just leave it.
We've got this from Jason. Moves are more to demonstrate mobile support for animated GIFs, which I just said. Thank you, Jason. And finally, from Kevin, we all agree moods are awesome. Let's move on. Okay.
Best comment tonight.
Next from the Android side, birthday reminders that now show up in Google Now. And not only do they show up there, they encourage you to send a birthday greeting in Google Plus from Google Now. So once again, we see the tie-in increasing. And finally, on Android, there is now the Google Plus lock screen widget, so you can read Google Plus without having to unlock your phone. I played with this, and after flipping through about 3 or 4 of them, it courteously shut itself off because it didn't see any activity. Anyone else have? Oh, and moving on to the iOS side, you can now swipe through photo albums in a more natural form. We've got tap to enlarge. I assume that's tap to enlarge the photos. Have you played with that one, Sreek?
Yes. Yeah, I can do that.
Or Harold? Pan, zoom, scale in the stream. I have no idea what that even means. Either of you? Sreek's nodding no. Pan, zoom, and scale in the stream.
Yes, that's another feature that's been disabled. What you can do is you basically, with your fingers, you can make things bigger and smaller. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is if you go, when you're in a browser now, you know how you can make the browser bigger with your fingers? You can't do that in Google News now. That's something they disabled in Google News. I just noticed that. I cannot make Google News bigger, but all the other browsers, if you're in any other website, on any other place, you can make it bigger or smaller with your fingers, but you can't in Google News.
Interesting. And then finally, the other final iOS feature are the conversation cards. Any thoughts on those?
What are they? I never really got time to check all this. There's too many features out there. All these things take time.
Time.
The other thing is it's very hard to use. It's awkward, it's kludgy, and other than that, it's just a great app.
Yeah, it's got 4 new buttons on the bottom, which are really cool for a location button. That's brand new on the bottom there.
Is that the new one? I mean,
yeah,
that's the new one.
We got those buttons on the Android side too. I think that's what they mean by that it's easier to post now or something like that. Okay. Continuing to move on, here's a feature on the photo side. They made 2 major changes, or two changes. The first is that now anybody using the Google Plus app on Android can view a photosphere, even though only 2 and up can take photosphere pictures. But anybody can view them now. Dan, if you keep looking, I've already entered these in, so you don't need to retype them over.
Yeah, but you've switched the order, and you're screwing me up, Alan.
Life's rough, Dan.
I'm going to have to watch all this again. You've wasted an hour of my time. That's okay, though.
And finally, so now anybody can watch badly stitched together photos. And the most interesting one is that you now have a choice of how you want your pictures uploaded. So if you're willing to have your photos from Instant Upload scaled down to, so the largest dimension is 2048, those upload for free, just as they always have. But now in addition, you can have it so that your photos get uploaded at their native size for your phone, and it'll start taking up quota. So currently you've got 5 gig free. So if your photos all fit under 5 gig total, it'll store up there, and no real indication what happens after that. Do they delete them? Can you buy more?
The 5 gigabyte number for these photo uploads is separate from the Google Drive size limits, right?
Apparently, yes. But that's a little vague still. I mean, there's a lot about this that really isn't all that clear.
Can I say something? So one of the things which I really like about the new app, other than the fact that it's very slick, is originally when I tried to share a link, let's say CNN.com, right? It never really picked up the background text or the image or whatever, and the link was like a dull link on my post somehow. But now I just shared this CNN.com, and I think the way they are actually trying to show the post, like how I posted from a desktop, it's a good improvement. I don't know that you guys have noticed it. An Android device, Harold, you try to post any website from your mobile device. I was always discouraged to do that because whenever I post a link, it never really showed other than just the link and whatever text I typed in.
It's kind of a hassle streak. And one thing I don't like is you can't select the thumbnail. So you might have an ad next to the story, and so I just discard it, and then when I get back to my desktop, I'll share it again. It's better, but it's not anything like the desktop experience, clearly.
As I said, I was always discouraged in sharing a link from the mobile device because it never really showed anything, whether there's not a short snippet of the text or even any picture for that matter. But now I think it looks better, and you guys are gonna get spammed with a lot more posts from me.
Well, we're used to it. Let me ask Alan, are you guys? I'm having issues with my upload on my Nexus 7 and my phone. I've got it enabled on both devices, but they don't instantly upload. They don't upload at all. In fact, I went
set to Wi-Fi only.
I set it to either. I mean, it's a 4G. Well, my Nexus 7, of course, is only Wi-Fi, but
check that setting. And occasionally, I've heard a lot of people have reported this problem in the past. One of the things that sometimes clears it is if you force it to go upload all. You just tell it to upload all immediately.
I tried that, and it didn't upload any.
Sometimes that didn't do anything.
I uploaded all, and it uploaded 0.
One issue I had was I had the same issue. It would take like 30, 40 minutes. Sometimes it wouldn't even upload at all. I contacted a few Googlers. It was like they told me to uninstall the app completely from the phone or the device, reinstall it, and clear the defaults because you got to go through and set up instant upload again. So it should give you the option to set it up again. If it doesn't, then you still have the data. You need to wipe that out.
And Dan,
it's backed up.
Yeah, have you tried doing a restart on the computer at high noon?
What the hell?
And while you do that, just do a slight little dance, around the phone.
Sacrifice a chicken, live chicken, perhaps.
A rare moment of sarcasm from my good friend.
A rare moment, yeah.
In Florida.
Well, welcome to the world of Android.
All right. What's next, Alan? What we got? We got you for another 40 minutes, so let's try to tie this
more
thing
like
up.
10 minutes or so. So going through these, next up were events. We had a whole bunch of new changes on events. So now, in addition, you're going to be able to send messages to specific members, and in fact, you're going to be able to send messages to people who have replied, who haven't replied. They give you nice checkboxes now to do this. This is something I'm terrified about because I think you're going to see spam explode from this, but we'll see. You can also see who has read your invite, who hasn't read your invite, and reply to them accordingly if you wish. The URL, you're now going to be able to send the URL to people by email, even those who are not members of Google+. So you can just send them the URL to the event, and they'll be able to handle it. Something and finally, something that I looked at and I'm like, why would anyone want this? But I'm sure there must be somebody out there who requested it, and that's that you're going to be able to duplicate an event.
Dan, I don't want it.
I could see a practical application for that. Although I didn't get, the events were kind of, I don't know. Alan, it didn't sort of work for, I tried them. I guess it's good. I get so much spam, you have no idea. Someone invited me to, I hate Google Plus Communities community. And they had a community logo with the circle and the red line.
And they didn't send it to me.
I thought of you, but that's another thing, Alan.
They're missing their target audience.
You can't, when you get that post that says, like Sarah Hill invited me to a community, right? And it said, I wanted to +1 it or reply like, hey, thanks for the invite. And you can't. I can't forward it to anybody, even if it's a public community. You can't interact at all on that notification.
I've got such a long list of
a rare Google
issues.
Plus glitch.
Yes, I know. And finally, we've two final things that were announced regarding Hangouts. The first is that we now have this thing called ultra low bandwidth mode.
Yeah, I saw this, but I don't know what this is.
Let me see if I can switch to it.
My guess it's ultra low bandwidth.
We could just go to Harold Carey. He's he's pretty close.
I don't know if I'm showing up okay. But
you're
this is
normal.
Ultra low.
Michael's
I'm showing
on
up
it.
as normal?
Yeah, I'm not. I guess Alan, I don't know.
There's Michael. Okay, so Michael is a better example, I guess.
I can see the
Wait, that's ultra low. I thought that was something else, like a toy.
Harold Carey is switching to ultra low bandwidth right now.
The freaky memes. You could do a whole music video.
Oh, jeez.
That's cool.
Look what you've done, Dan.
I'm ultra low bandwidth mode. That's what happened.
See, this is what I was kind of asking for is prioritize audio. Make the video something that takes very little and prioritize the audio. That's probably.
I'm not sure how much this prioritizes the audio, but what it does do is it basically allows for extremely low bandwidth connections to at least have some sort of representation.
Yeah.
Using this nice charcoal drawing.
It's good. It's fantastic because there's still a lot of people in this country that have ultra low bandwidth.
No, seriously though. I mean, I'm looking at this.
Do I look a lot better?
Right?
How about my pictures?
You can't see anything. I mean, you can kind of, I guess.
Yeah,
but like if you were like a
people say I look better
Syrian
in this
protester or something, and you were doing they wouldn't be, look at the destruction, and you wouldn't be able to see any of it,
Yeah.
You can audibly describe. I guess it's better than just a profile picture because you can kind of see there's someone there, and Banks has his hat on.
Okay, I'm going to switch to medium mode now.
I think what would be even better, and they should add this as an option, is something where it takes a still image, every 10 seconds or something, and so then if somebody was covering an event, at least you would see stills. And it could calculate it based on the available bandwidth and say, okay, we're going to refresh the still every 4 seconds. We're going to do it every 5 seconds. Whatever.
That's basically what it does. That's basically what it does now. It's auto detection, right? It'll buffer down or buffer up.
Yeah, but usually what it does is it pixelates and really screws up the video as opposed to showing a still image.
Yeah, and actually, have you noticed that the pixelating isn't as bad recently the past few days? I mean, just watching us tonight, it seems like switching between people has been a little clearer than it has.
That is interesting, Alan.
It is, but still, like I was in a hangout with Tatiana earlier today, and she's usually crystal clear, and her lower third is crystal clear, and then sometimes it would go real pixelated, and then it would come back a while later. Like Michael just went in and out. For some reason, and we've troubleshooted it, we've checked her connection, she's hooked up with a Cat5 cable, everything should be fine, but yet you still have these issues.
I don't know, I mean, I'm watching you moving around, and in the past, watching you move around, I'd see the whole video screen just pixelate badly sometimes, and it's staying fairly clear for you this evening, so I think there's an improvement there as well.
You look clear. Are you on the Chromebook?
I am on the Chromebook.
Living dangerously.
Rah, rah.
Works better than my MacBook most of the time. Anyway, and the final feature they introduced today was now for Hangouts on Air, if you're the only one broadcasting at that moment, either because you're the only one in the Hangout or because you've got everyone else hidden using the tool whose name I suddenly can't remember.
Cameraman app?
Using the cameraman app, if you've hidden everyone else, then your video will be shown full screen and you won't see basically a one-person film strip underneath. So they're trying to make things just a little bit more professional, step by step.
And that's how we're doing for you watching this. That's how I've got two Hangouts. I'm bringing in. They're in a regular Hangout, not on air, and the purpose of that is so I don't come up twice on the screen. But if you're looking, this is full screen. That's how we're doing it. God, Alan, if they ever do 720p on these things, whoa, that will be epic. That'd be like YouTube Live.
Be epic. But imagine how much. I mean, that increases the amount of upstream bandwidth.
As I say, how much? That's exactly what I was going to say. How much bandwidth do you think we need for that?
Yeah, they need to run Google Fiber to everybody in the country, and then we've got.
We'll be talking Craig,
Well, at least
Craig,
to those
hang
of us
around.
on the show.
Craig, hang around. We're going to be
but
talking about
there's-
Google Fiber some more later.
Yeah, there's other applications that run video conferencing at 720p, so it's definitely doable. This just happens to be 480p.
360.
360, yeah, whatever. Yeah, right.
Okay, so some other things that they introduced this week that they didn't tell us about in today's feature announcements. The first is that they've now made some changes to what used to be known as the video tab, and now some people have seen it switch over to the name YouTube. And basically, they're now featuring your YouTube videos. If you've got your YouTube account and your Google Plus account linked, your YouTube videos will now show up in your profile. I see a couple of people nodding. Jeff, Mike, what are your thoughts?
No, I'm sorry. I was looking at something else.
You were nodding absentmindedly, not listening to me at all. Yeah, that's what I thought.
What do they do? They what?
The tab on your profile that used to be called Video,
Yeah.
is now called YouTube.
Ah.
You told me about this, Dan.
Not for me. It's still called video.
Yeah, it's still video
It's still
on
called
mine.
video on some of them, but even where it's still called video, your YouTube
just got it.
videos are showing up in there if you've got it linked.
Did they just delete all of our all of our videos?
Now, how do I link?
No, they're
how do
showing
I
up.
link-
They're showing up at the bottom underneath all your YouTube ones.
How do I
They're
link
still there.
mine? Why is mine?
just got
Why is mine not linked?
Let me
What do
look
I
at your
have to
profile, Craig.
I don't know. Is your YouTube profile linked to your Google Plus profile?
I'll check.
I
If,
just
if
got
it isn't, ask Ronnie. He'll tell you how.
I mean, it said videos, and I refreshed like twice, and I just got the feature says YouTube.
Yeah, but that's a great change, if you ask me.
I think it's half of a great change. The other part of the great change, and you see here, I'm not saying that they totally messed this up. I wanted this noted clearly. The other half of the great change will be when they make it so that your YouTube videos can be permitted to your circles, so that it has the same permission structure that the
Yeah.
Google Plus lousy
Doesn't-
video system has.
Isn't
In other words, you wouldn't have to manually reshare it to circles if it's a unlisted video.
Well, but that's the thing. I don't want to deal with this unlisted video, has only the link stuff. I want circles in YouTube.
They have that I thought already.
No, they
You can
don't.
share. I'm pretty sure I can share to a circle.
You can share a link to the circle, but that means you need to keep it unlisted. And if the link leaks out, it's not the same thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
Alan, mine has changed. It doesn't. The link or the tab on the profile does not say. It still says videos. It doesn't say YouTube. But when you click on videos, it says your YouTube videos, and it shows all of my YouTube videos, whatever junk I've put up there, which is interestingly much more kind of out there than I expected all these videos to be. Perhaps I'm going to have to go adjust
Well,
privacy settings on some of them.
Yeah, if you made them public, they're public.
Yeah, I guess I'm learning how to use it, so I didn't realize exactly what that meant.
Oh, the first thing I did was figure out how to make sure they were private, and my private ones aren't showing up.
But Alan, if
Yes, Pam.
let's say that I'm drunk one night and you,
Hypothetically.
Just hypothetically.
It's a stretch, but go ahead.
and you made the mistake of sharing a link to a video of, I don't know, your dog, and
Yeah.
and it's a private video, and
Oh my God. Pam.
dog.
What the hell are you doing? This is a private. No,
Well,
I'm kidding.
Okay,
Proceed.
So
I'm sorry.
I'm
Keep
just
going.
I'm just trying to ask the question. If I accidentally shared this link with somebody else, then they would be able to see it, right?
If you have permitted the video to, if it is unlisted but still public, or sorry, unlisted but available to people who have the link, if you make it private, then even with the link, they can't see it.
Right.
I have a question.
Unlisted means they just can't stumble upon it.
But
Right.
why would you make a video that's visible only to yourself?
I have a question.
No, it means you can share it.
No, there are three forms. There is public, there is private, and private ones are only ones that you can see, and there is visible to people who have the link. The reason why you'd have a video that is private that only you can see is if this is a video that you are preparing for something, if it's a video that you took and don't want to make public yet. There are a number of reasons why I've got a bunch that are up there just because they're lousy test videos.
Yeah, so do
I
I.
have no reason to share, but I haven't gotten around to deleting them yet.
Pam, will you provide? Pam, can we see a list of your private videos?
I have a question then. This is a private video, and I can share it to circles. What are you talking about I can't do?
She can't. They wouldn't be able to see it. If it's private. If it was unlisted, they'd be able to see it.
About what Alan is saying about sharing to circles.
I've shared this.
Yeah, look at that, Alan. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
No,
right,
that's an interesting one.
right in YouTube, you can do it. I assume. Okay, you have it private. Share it to Diana and see.
I've already done this. I did this.
Oh,
back
does
in
it?
September.
Does it?
Share it to me.
But it keeps it private. That's a conflicting.
Yeah.
He might not want you to see it.
No, what I'm
I did
saying
this
is it
back
keeps
in
it private, but it's a conflicting setting. It's not private.
Yeah,
it's
because
private
you can actually
except.
share it. It's not completely setting. It's private if he can share it with somebody.
Yeah, I shared it with Alan. Well, I gave him permission to see it. Put it that way.
So it
And
doesn't.
that-
Okay.
And it is showing up in my stream as a.
So
what
private
I'm
no
saying.
longer means nobody can see it. It means nobody can see it except people you've chosen. I see that listed right there underneath.
Yeah,
Apparently.
I had
That's
this feature
awesome.
back in
So
September.
we've got a new feature just for Alan.
No. I mean, I had this back in September. I did this September 15th. at
Alan's
10:30.
kind of last year's news sometimes.
No, I'll be the first to admit that I'm not a YouTube person.
But
Yeah,
your
what
one
happens
YouTube
to-
got on the What's Hot list, Alan. You did one video and it makes it on What's Hot list. Now he's afraid to do another one. Like he made his Thriller album, so he's afraid to do something else, right?
Dan, it works the same way as Google Docs. So if you have a private document and you share it with somebody, it automatically changes it to anybody with a link. No, YouTube works the same way. If you have a private
what it
YouTube,
says is it changes it to public.
well, it changes it. I know when I share something, it changes it to anyone with a link.
You
if it's
can
private.
change, yeah, you can change it to anyone with a link, but it's what it says when you try to share a doc to Google Plus. It says it needs to be public, and then you can lie and say and just change it to anyone with a link. Anyway, and finally, before I leave, one change that hasn't been announced at all, that just kind of rolled out silently, is that next to each comment in a Google Plus post, next to the +1 button, it now gives a link that says reply. And if you click on that reply link, it starts a new comment that would prefixed with the name of the person that you're replying to. So this starts to address some of the issues that people have had with threaded comments and kind of come up with a convention for how you can reply to them.
It's a compromise, right? It's not true threading.
It's not true threading, but a lot of people don't like the idea.
Or it's not
of true
nested threading, I should say.
Yeah, it's not nested or hierarchy threading.
Still, it's cool, yeah.
It's cool. I like it. It's good. The one problem I have, though, is that now when you move your mouse up and down a list of comment replies, it kind of moves around. The spacing on things wasn't quite done correctly. So the formatting jiggles around a little as you move over it. It's very distracting. At least I find it very distracting.
What if you, let's say, like on some of my posts, I have side conversations going on in the comment section, and sometimes you reply to the same person but about different topics. There's really no way to.
Right. There's no way to, and it doesn't try to. But it tries to. It basically. It's a little bit of a compromise, just a little bit of a tool to help people make it clear who they're try to make it clear who they're replying to, in some cases. It's a small step. I think it's a good step. It's a reasonable step, and certainly it's better than trying to create real teeny tiny, narrow comments with all of bizarre nesting going on.
Right.
So anyway.
Alan, can I interject a topic? We got right at 8 o'clock. We got this thing from David. Let me tell him. Let me tell him.
Yes, I okay.
Yeah, I'm replying on his thing. Okay, so at one.
I had actually said that later we would be talking some more about communities.
Do you want to answer this question real quick before you go?
I will try if I can find it again.
Okay,
quickly.
I'll read it. Okay, here's what it's David. Wow, Dirk Sheed. Rough idea how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
He's,
David Dirkscheid.
Well, it was a limited post, so I shouldn't say that. So ignore the name I just said. But he said I only watched the. He says he's beginning to get into communities. Hoping we'll talk more about it. He said, is there any chance that Google Plus may make it possible to link one or more communities to a brand page? This could be very helpful. It could equally be useful to be able to have invitation-only subgroups within a community.
Okay.
Anyone want to tackle this?
Well, let me give my answer quickly, and then I'm going to turn it over to the panel to discuss it further. The first is you can tie communities to brand pages. In fact, there is, from my understanding, and I have not played with it extensively, but my understanding is that if you create, and you have to create, a community from a page, there are a couple of additional things that it gives you. That it gives a page, it will give you a link back to the page. There is a tie. And if you are planning on doing this, make sure you create the community from the page. That's important. That's the important step to do.
I did that with my Navajo people. It's created, Navajo people community is created with the Navajo people page.
Right. In fact, I would almost universally recommend that if you're creating communities, create a page, then create the community from the page.
Why do you say that, Al?
Why do I say that? Because it'll make a lot of things easier to manage. Because then it does a lot of things easier to manage. It also helps a little bit with brand identity and control and all of that stuff wrapped together. So even if you're not doing it for a brand, even if you're just trying to create a concept, I would recommend make a page to create the community. And I think the other thing that it gives you is you can say, follow the page as well as the community, and the page can put out notices about what's going on in the community. So that's a way that you can have sticky topics and that sort of thing. The second thing, and I've got to run, so I can't, so I want to hit this quickly. It could equally be useful to have invitation-only subgroups within a community. I think they're having enough problems managing the issues with subgroups now that although that's an interesting idea, and it's something that you find on most real forum software, I'm not sure how well it will work in this particular case. That said, however, it's not all that difficult to create more than one community. I mean, it's no more difficult than creating a community in the first place, which I hope you know my feelings about that by now. And if not, go watch last week's show, and I'll talk about it ad nauseum later, I'm sure. So with that, I will turn it over to you guys to continue to hash out this conversation some
Quick
more.
question, Alan. You're back tonight?
Yeah, I'll be back. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Panel, you want to weigh in on this? I know Ronnie had to go, but he would have been a good one on this topic. Go ahead, guys. You're talking over each other.
Something I noticed, I think Google said that we cannot join public Hangouts from the mobile devices, right? I don't know whether it's true for Android or...
Hang on, Sarik, you're switching topics here. Anybody want to address this topic on the communities?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
brand
I think
pages?
I think Alan makes a great point. If you want to keep the brand, if you want to brand, keep a brand going, you want to definitely do it from a brand page and start the community that way. It just makes sense. And then when Google probably is going to, update other items that will make it easier going forward to move that into a more profitable arrangement for you if you're creating a brand. So I would definitely do it that way.
Has the amount of activity on communities gone down now?
No, they're still going up.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, it's niche stuff. Like if Harold started a Navajo community where folks could talk about that stuff, or if we started I want to start a Wirecast one, where folks who are contemplating getting it, because we get this question all the time, how are you doing your show? And I say Wirecast, and they, I can direct them to the Telestream forum, or we could answer a question there. I want to start one for the Note and the Note 2 for folks contemplating getting the phone, and if you have a question, those sorts of things. But we've seen with the Google Plus Discuss community, it blew up so big that they're having to spend a lot of time moderating it, and there's a lot of, it's not, I don't think what they envisioned, but it's a learning process, right?
So you're saying that if a niche community is like 1,000 members or less, right? And people are really interested in that. And if you go to very, very specific areas, like for example, you said Node 2 or Node 1, that is where it actually is more productive as opposed to having a huge community like Google Plus Discuss or whatever.
Yeah, like for example, Sreek, if you started for Indian Americans living in New Jersey, New York City area, right?
Let me start that right now.
Seriously, that would be a good one. You could meet new people, and talk about whatever, fun stuff to do or whatever you want to talk about. But that would be a niche community.
I have a problem though. If I put Indian Americans, a lot of Indians will also join that. But I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Why not?
But if you say, for example, I'm part of this group called Tech and Coffee, right? And they started a community. We have like 1,500 people already in there, and we have like 14 moderators. So we kind of we have a community anyways, and we just coalesce a little bit more about that. So it was a circle, and now it's a brand, and now it's a community. And it makes sense to do it that way. You can share the burden.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still struggling with mine to get worked out the balance between the page and the community and what I should want to use either one for. And I've been letting the dust settle in communities so that before I invest a lot of energy in figuring it all out.
I think you use the brand to put out the brand page to put out the information you want the image to be and what the brand to be. Right, the message, and then the community is more like a discussion board around the brand, right? So,
let me ask you guys this because you guys are experts on community and much more than me. If you make a community which is public from the beginning, can you make it private later?
No, you cannot. Not currently.
Right.
So what is the real difference? Anybody can join?
No, you can, and you can make it public, but you have to approve of the people that join. You can do that.
So what is the difference if I have it private? Nobody can join, I have to invite.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we all agree communities are awesome. And perfectly fine honed. Okay, so next, I'm gonna need some assist here because I'll be honest. I was dealing with the live coverage of this horrific thing today, and I basically have not done my homework. And I think all of us were affected by this. And but I see that. Let me go to Michael here. Let me put my time in here at 1:08:10. The Chrome extension you can save to Drive now. Who can tell us what that's about?
Yeah, it's basically a Chrome extension that allows you to now save different images and different things directly by right-clicking on it, saving it directly to your Google Drive.
Yeah.
And
I got this from you, Michael, and I installed it right away.
Yeah.
And it's nice. It works. It didn't work the first time I did it for some strange reason, but then, I don't know, an hour later, it just magically started working. But it works quite well, and I've saved quite a number of pictures that I've seen on the web that I want to capture. I'm using it at work to capture specific things, from the SAP documentation. I need an image of this part of the book, and I just capture a picture of it.
Yep.
Works
I use
great.
it a lot too. Yeah, it's why another nice feature is when you click on it, you click on the picture and save it, it allows you to rename it at the same time. So as soon as you click on it, there's a rename button, and I do that, and so it works really great. And then you can view all those pictures. If you can view all those pictures, if you click on your little picture thing up at the very top of the page, you can see them all and scroll through them. It's really nice.
Okay.
Harold, I
Go
didn't
ahead,
understand.
Michael.
I'm sorry. Harold, how did you do that? You said you could look at where do you click to see all your pictures from that?
On the very top of your drive, there's two little buttons. There's one that says switch to list and one that says switch to grid. If you click on switch to grid, you can see all your pictures. It's really a cool feature.
It's changed.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I did not know that. Okay, I'll check that out. Thanks.
Okay, and then another thing is Google's Plus's trending topics. This is pretty funny. There was a Wired magazine article discussing totally nerdy Google. This is a fair critique, isn't it? This is a, it started out with Google employees and then their friends and family because it was invite only from the beginning. And so it was basically, a male-dominated social network. And I was going to ask Pam about this, but we have, well, the best evidence here. Let me go to the panel here. We have Anthony, Craig Shipp. Anthony is a tech enthusiast. Craig Shipp is a tech enthusiast. Me, we have Harold Carey, who's big on the web. We have Jeff Zayas, who's a web
small on the web.
We have Michael Banks, who's just really tall on the web. We have Michael Ellis, who's kind of a techie dude, and then we have Sreek Menon, who's an IT guy, or like I don't know how to describe it accurately. So it's obviously outrageous that they would suggest that Google Plus is dominated by tech people.
Right. Now, to be fair, Dan, this is a tech show, so you're naturally impaneled people that are more interested in that. It doesn't necessarily represent a cross section of the community.
Also, to be fair, the article's correct.
It's still true. It's still true. I mean, it started out, it was just techies. They stayed that way too long.
Yeah.
They didn't open it up to everybody. And so normal people that did come here found, of course, that there were just a bunch of techies here, and they left. And so it's very hard to turn that around.
Do you mean to say techies are not normal, Jeff? I mean,
techies are not normal in any way, shape, or form. They're the 1%.
Yeah. They're like
Here's what they say.
You don't like them until you need them.
Here's what
you got 99% out there that you're alienating. Okay.
Here's what
that's not a good business strategy.
Okay, here's what they said. They pointed to these examples on Facebook, Craig's favorite site, and where Harold gets the vast majority of his traction, even though he started a Facebook page well after he started his Google Plus page. He gets a lot more traction for his Navajo content on Facebook. But the trending Facebook theme memes at the time were TBH, to be honest, You Only Live Once, the Coney video, one word comment, Gangnam Style, Cinnamon Challenge, Cray, Shake My Head, Big Bird, and Unsanity. On Google Plus, SOPA, Awesome, Sandy, O12, IO12, Curiosity, Olympics, South by Southwest, Debate, Blast from the Past, and Eastwooding. I have no idea what Eastwooding is, but...
Yeah, but
you know what, though? I'm looking at the trending topics right now.
Yeah, what are they right now, Anthony?
There's not a single one that's techie. There's Pray for New... I don't even know. Is it Newtown?
Newtown. It's Newtown, not Newton.
So,
and by the way, everybody, you fly the flag at half staff, not half mast. Mast is on a ship. I just wanted to get that out. What else, Anthony?
Anthony, give us. Here's the rest of the training.
Yeah, go ahead.
Middle Earth.
Friday, Manny, I don't know what his name is, and show you Linux. Well, okay, that's techie.
Yeah.
But
so
Anthony, that doesn't. What's trending doesn't establish who's there.
Well, we're talking about what was trending. So
yeah, but we can perpetuate mainstream stories, and we're techies, right? So I mean that doesn't mean anything.
But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about
only because we know a bunch of.
We're talking about tech subjects trending, so don't sideswipe to something else.
No, we're talking about. I thought we were talking about a conclusion that they drew from that.
Well, we all talking about.
But that was back. That was back then. We're talking about now, and what's trending now. There's only one tech item. The rest are Middle Earth, Fido Friday, Manny Pacquiao, and then Pray for Newtown. Okay, so I mean, it's exactly what it is, right? So, that's what's happening.
Craig, only because you know a bunch of techie guys here, or most of the folks you know in here are more or less tech-oriented. Come on, who is not tech-oriented nowadays? Everybody owns a mobile phone.
People that
doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything.
Shriek, most of the people that I know are not tech-oriented. Not in any way, shape, or form. Most of the people I know are absolutely the opposite of tech-oriented, and they're all on Facebook.
Define tech.
People like us.
Us? What do you mean? I'm
People
so
that
much-
care about this stuff. The average person doesn't care about any of this stuff.
Let me tell you this. Everybody sitting here has a different take of technology than everybody else. If you compare, right? Michael is a completely different orientation towards tech. Both Michaels,
Yes, but
actually.
Shriek, we wouldn't even be here if we didn't care about technology, correct?
Not really. I was checking Yahoo Mail a long time back, not because I liked technology at that time.
I don't like it either, but I use it and I try to pay attention to it. But that doesn't, you know.
If you go back to last week's numbers, Google Plus is one of the fastest growing networks coming on. They just mentioned 500 million users and then 125 million active users. So, you know, in contrast, it is coming on. So
that's still a very small percentage of the population.
All I'm saying is we use the word tech or tech community or technology in a way that it sounds like it's a very, very broad idea.
So George Cozy says, how can people say that Google Plus is geek heavy when Justin Bieber is trending on a regular basis?
Absolutely.
Don't techies really love Justin Bieber?
I don't.
He just had a
because something
threat.
trends doesn't determine who's making it trend. I mean,
Thank you, Craig.
Are you saying there are 500 million techies in the world, or 250 million of them are techies?
Okay, so if there's 150 million people active on Google Plus right now, if there's 150 million, okay, then that is probably 1%. That's what I'm saying all along, 1%. Right?
1% of what?
Of the people.
No.
Are here.
No, that'd be 10%.
No, I'm saying
Yes.
1% are here.
No.
If there's 8 or 10 billion in the world, right?
Yes, but you're comparing it to Facebook.
No, I'm not. I'm comparing
you
it to
were.
the population at large.
No, the comparison was Facebook. The comparison was Facebook to
Most of the population at large is on Facebook.
All right, let me go to Anthony.
Huge population on Facebook is also very techy.
All right, while these tech guys argue, let me go to Anthony with some comments from the room. Let's get Carlos and
So Carlos says, come on, not everything on Google Plus is technology. I have a lot of friends that post pop culture stuff, and I follow a lot of artists here.
Absolutely.
And Britney Spears, with that comment in mind, is the most followed person on Google Plus, followed by Lady Gaga.
Because they put these people on the recommended list, and when people sign up, they click and they follow them. That doesn't mean that they're not techies.
There's Catterday, there's Ginger Thursday, there's all this stuff that goes on that it has not to do with anything with tech, that has built up a general consensus.
Anthony, can you highlight? Let's move on. Anthony, can you highlight Kevin Bryan's comment because Craig will like it?
Yeah, sure. Kevin Bryan says Craig is 100% right. Google Plus is a techie hothouse. Tariq, take it down at the house. Don't hate Craig because he's correct.
There are
He's
many.
not correct. He's not correct.
There are many legitimate reasons to hate on Craig, but
can I go like this?
All right, let me go to Michael. Michael, you're still here, right?
I need to say this. Kevin is completely wrong. He's not correct at all. Only because you are interacting with a lot of techies or people with a lot of interest in tech. That doesn't mean the whole place is full of techies.
So we all agree.
Okay, excellent.
Absolutely.
That's awesome news. Okay. So at 1:19:04, we're going to switch to be picky with your takeout. Michael, can you explain what this is?
Okay, yeah, basically Takeout is a hub that lets you download all your Google data that's stored on some of the Google servers. So what they've added the feature now is they've created a GUI to make it easier that you can choose different services that you can choose your takeout. So for example, there's different things I can pull out my plus ones. I have Buzz content still logged in there, so I have Buzz content I can pull off. I can pull off contents, drive, circles, stream, info, all my posts, latitude, Picasso Web, YouTube, Google Reader, Google Voice. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of different things, and you can all download it into like a big zip file or a JSON file, and it just compresses all of it in there. And now they make it easier that you can choose different services that you can pull from Google.
Michael, is the YouTube one and voice, are those newer? I don't recall those.
Those are newer. They've been the more you save on there, and they're slowly adding different things that they can, different services that they can that you use your data. They're making that more available to take out as well.
Yeah. What's your perspective on what do I do with it once I take it out?
There are many different things you can do. Most of the things I've seen done on the internet is analytical based. For example, I've used a few analytical tables that you can pull off all of your +1s, for example, and you can see, you know, how many different people interacted on it, different things. You can make different engines and different analytical things. It's more, some people are, paranoid about, you know, somebody have your data. Now you have a copy of your data. Another person, you know, let's say you get censored. Now you got a copy of that information. Now you still have it.
Okay, that's smart. But it doesn't stop Google from having it. It's not like it removes it from Google's record.
It doesn't remove it, but you can have Google, if I remember correctly, you can have Google delete all of your information.
Correct.
Delete your account.
Right.
But that's rather binary, like the entire world of everything you've ever done on Google, or nothing. Leave everything you've ever done.
Yeah, I did run into something that Ronnie helped me out with. Is that you can only download, which I did not know, you can only download 2 videos a day from YouTube. I thought so that was something, if I knew about the takeout, I would be able to download everything and pick the ones I wanted and then, just toss the rest out. But that seems to be a big thing. But I never knew about the 2 download.
Boy, Craig would be busy. Whew. Okay, so all right, this is interesting. I want to go to Craig on this and see what he thinks. Netflix, 122.30. Netflix did a review and determined that Google Fiber is the fastest, generally overall, consistently fastest internet experience anywhere. Do you have this up, Anthony, to show us? Yep. Let's look at this here and see what you guys think.
I know that you wanted to go to Craig first.
Go ahead,
but,
it's okay.
If I can interject first. What's interesting is the theoretical speed I guess I've been seeing is that Google Fiber can get up to 700 megabits per second. And if you look at this graphic that I have up, the November average speed for Netflix streams for Google Fiber is 2.55. So I think that we can come to the conclusion that Google Fiber is maxing out the connection speed that Netflix tries to send.
Yeah.
So the fact that Google Fiber is at the top, I don't think is a shock to anyone that knows about Google Fiber.
So what you're saying is all Netflix is saying is that Google Fiber can receive whatever the max is that they're sending.
Well, that's what I would theorize. So like to make an example, say that Verizon was able to average out at 3.00 megabits per second. I think Verizon's number would be 2.55 also. In this case, the number is 2.19.
So
I think that the maximum speed that Netflix is sending out is 2.55 megabits per second.
So what we would have to know really is that their max is 720p, and we don't really know the bit rate and the quality of that 720p, right? And so that is the max that they will deliver. So what do you need to receive that? Might only be 2.0 on that list, Right.
And these are average numbers. So again, theorizing, I would say that Google Fiber is always hitting the maximum speed, whereas Verizon is actually, in my opinion, probably doing a very good job of hitting a very high average speed at 2.19, because again, we're saying that Netflix is probably at max sending out 2.55. So 2.19 and even 2.17 is not, that much below the bar.
I know I have a pretty decent connection. I have a cable modem, which, as we all know, during prime time, you're sharing a modem and so on. But it tests out pretty good as far as the upload and download speed and the round trip time and all of that. But even so, there are times during prime time when I'll be watching my Roku box, right, and I'll be watching Netflix, and it'll go down from the HD to the four dots.
Right.
And it'll spool, and then it'll go down to the 4 dots and play on that. Not that often. Usually it's the HD. So I know there's a real problem with consistency and stability of these internet connections, not just the speed. There are people that talk about having 100 megabits up and 100 megabits
right,
down.
and that's what I'm talking. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about averages. Is in this case, the average is a lot more important than the top speed, because I believe that Verizon's connection across the board is 50 megabits per second for the lowest level of service. I may be wrong about that, but
the bottom line is whatever we have now is not enough. I mean, it's not stable enough, and it's not consistent enough, and it's not
certainly
mobile.
not for HD content streaming.
That's right, and it's not mobile enough, right? So the bar is what I would like to see. I would like to see everybody in these United States of America be able to have a fast enough connection to stream 4K content down to their location and back up. 4K. I'm not going for 8K. I'm not being,
well, you know what?
That's a bit of
greedy here.
I mean, I don't know what the bit rate of 4K would need to be, but I mean, maybe that would strain Google Fiber.
I'd like to find out.
I mean, I'm sure it's easy to figure that out, but I don't know what that number is.
Wouldn't it be important to get the compression rates down?
It'd be 4 kilobytes
on the video, and that the processing speed on the both ends can be recompressed at a faster rate, so the routers can take compressed data, and move them quicker. So it's not just so much about the content; it's the compression of the content, and then coming back out from.
It's not really that. What is it? It's 4K, right? That 4,000 pixels. I don't know how many bytes are used for a pixel, times however 30 frames
Michael
a second,
probably
right?
knows the answer. Michael, what's the answer?
The bitrate for a 4K video file is a little over 6 megabytes.
So it's a little bit. It's basically double 1080p bit rate.
Is that true?
Which is apparently 2.55.
No,
I'm thinking it's more than that.
No, because Netflix streams at 720p, not 1080.
4K images 40.
Don't they usually stream it at 720? Or am I wrong on that?
4K image is 4096 pixels wide. So that's like a little bit above 1080p. I mean, like 1280
exponentially so.
Yeah.
4K is approximately 4 times larger than 1080p.
Yeah.
So if we had Michael, if we had a gigabit down and a gigabit up, consistent, would we be able to stream?
Yes.
4K.
You could get it through the pipes with the machine. Who knows?
Well, the machines will get there.
Through the pipe. Yes.
The machines will get there.
The other thing is
they're 1080p, Craig. Just to update that, I'm looking here. I see a story from Mashable, the king of the aggregators, who don't link back to their sources. Netflix instant streaming goes 1080p this year, and that's from 2010. Looks like.
Okay, and
because mine, I have the built-in app on my Vizio TV. I have a button.
We should preface that although Netflix has the capability of streaming in 1080p, that doesn't mean that they are streaming in 1080p. Yeah. I would say 90% of and I'm making up numbers here, but I would say that 90% of the library is actually probably in 480p, and then another percentage is in 720p, and then a smaller percentage is going to be in 1080p.
I watch like something like The West Wing, I think it's probably 720, I'm guessing, but when I watch a new show on Netflix or a movie or something, recent release, it looks like Lost. If I look at Lost on my Vizio TV, I swear it looks like high-def broadcast television. It's amazing.
And-
Those
and what are
girls
you-
look incredible on that beach.
Well, and you
And
should
what are
know
you
that most.
streaming it? What are you streaming it, Dan? When you're streaming it, what are you using? Like a Roku box or?
My Vizio television, I have an Ethernet cable hooked up to it. I also have incredible internet, like 100
Yeah.
down and 20
We
up.
know
or whatever.
that. Yeah.
But so
yeah.
I'm not a typical case.
Yeah.
But I have an Ethernet cable. My TV has built-in Wi-Fi if I wanted it, but I obviously get better quality with copper. So I have the built-in Vizio app. So it's better quality on the TV than it is on the computer. if
So
I
you
use
have a
it.
Netflix app right into your computer in your TV.
And Amazon Prime.
Okay. And so when you're watching it and it tells you that it's 1080p?
No, I could just look and it looks.
Okay.
You know, it's a 32-inch TV. It's about 5 feet away from me, so you can tell. You can tell. You know what? I'm thinking it's 1080p.
So people that I've talked to that have watched a 4K machine TV have said it just blows away 1080p. That if you
I've never seen one. Where would you see one?
It's
at
almost
CES and other places they've had them set up. And the people that have seen them, people that I think are not necessarily exaggerating, have said that it's just an incredible step up. Just like when we went from CDs to high definition, with CD being 480p. They said it's like that same kind of jump.
What about that crazy story, Anthony, about the people watching The Hobbit that's in 4K and they got sick and they were like leaving vomiting or something?
The thing is,
what's the deal with that?
I haven't seen a 4K display, but a lot of people that have seen 4K displays would say that it's like looking through a window. Like you're looking out, your building's window, and you're seeing.
It's real stuff happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if someone told you that it was just a window and you didn't try to look at the angles, like you'd probably believe that you were just looking out a window.
So that's why I say that's what our target should be, Dan, is we should want bandwidth capable of delivering that everywhere we are, not only at our physical locations, but at mobile locations. And that's what we should be building our infrastructure
It'd be
to
so
support.
interesting to get someone from the industry or from someone who makes routers and the technology that actually powers this stuff to kind of explain why these. Now, it's not fair to look at these countries because we're, I think, between 20 and 30 in speed worldwide, but we're a huge country and we're spread out. If you're like in Singapore, it's a very densely populated, smaller country. It's much easier logistically. It's easier to run fiber to a townhouse community than giant separate homes 4 miles apart. And we have highways in Texas that are 100 miles that have nothing in between them, and you got to run the wire.
Things being difficult have never stopped these United States in the past. And if we're going to be competitive with these other countries, and if we're going to do things right, we have to do this. This is something that is not optional. We have to get people connected.
But again, it's going to be the marketplace that dictates it. That's how it works. It's going to be the marketplace.
Let's go to Michael, and then let's switch to the next topic, which is very much related to what we're talking about. We've kind of almost gotten there. Go ahead, Michael.
I think moreover than all of that, it just takes time in legislature. I mean, a lot of it's all up in the different laws and different pricing and all these other files, lawsuits and patents, all this other stuff is all intertwined, and I think it's just going to take time.
Well, and you need the type of political will that's necessary to make that type of significant infrastructure investment. It's like it would be like having the Obama internet system as we had the Eisenhower interstates.
The Eisenhower interstate.
But they just do it. They say in 5 years we're going to switch from SD to HD broadcasting. Guess what? If you don't have an HD TV, bam, you have to get a converter. That's what they do. Right?
Something that we should keep in mind as you talk about Obama's push to get internet, across the country, high speed internet across the country, and that's a great thing. I'm Republican, but that's a great thing. But that's completely different than having high-speed connections. He's not. I mean, I'm sure that he would love to have high-speed, massively high-speed connections across the entire country. But that's not what he's talking about.
Okay.
He's talking about high-speed connections that can get you basically to the internet. He's not talking about getting Google Fiber to every major city.
Well, let's go to that topic. Let me go to Craig Shipp, because Eric Schmidt gave a speech, and he said Google Fiber is not an experiment. At least now it is. And he said that they're not sure what they're going to do. But he did say it's not going to stop in Kansas City. So this goes to what Craig has been talking about for months. Since we first heard about this this thing. Can you imagine? They're really. I can't. It'd be really interesting. We need to talk to someone in Kansas City. I'm getting echo back from somebody. If you could all look at your own thing and see if you're getting any green box as I talk, and just mute your mic and then unmute it when you talk.
I think it's Mr. Ellis.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. We take back everything we
It
said
might be
about you being
Michael,
too. But anyway, I just think this is fascinating, and it would be great. I can't imagine. It'd be so interesting to talk to someone in Kansas City who could tell us like an existing. I don't know what they have there, if it's Comcast or Verizon or whatever it is, but it'd be so interesting to have them. What are you thinking? Are you going to stick with your current provider? Are you going to switch? I'm guessing it's going to be mass switching. What do you guys think? Let me go to Craig Shipp first, because I know you've been preaching about this for quite some time. Craig, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've actually been talking about this since 1996 when I started in this business. My whole business and my whole future is based on people being connected. And I've been patiently waiting and waiting and waiting. And right in Frederick County, Maryland, where one of my main websites is located, there's still a whole bunch of people on dial-up. So it's a big, big problem. And for Google, it's a big problem because that's the only way they grow is if people use the internet. They've said repeatedly, time and time again, the more people use the internet, the more money we make. Well, if people don't have a good connection, then they can't use the internet. And especially with mobile devices now rolling out, if people continually being disappointed, when they get on their mobile phone and they think they can record a video and upload it direct to YouTube, and then it takes forever to happen or just crashes or whatever, that doesn't leave a good taste in their mouth. So these devices have to work. We have to have high-speed connection on our mobile devices and fixed locations. And I stress that because everything's going towards mobile. I'm in a mobile situation right now.
Yeah.
And
I think Monica is the one who brought this topic up. Can you chime in?
Yeah, I submitted this article because it originally popped up in my stream, and I thought it would make a good topic for discussion. I'm not in Kansas City, so I can't give that ground, perspective. But I've read articles about this, and basically they have some sweet, sweet deals going on with Kansas City, with the government and the infrastructure. And a lot of the deals that they've cut with the city have been so sweet that like other providers have looked at what Google is doing and the kinds of things that they have gotten. And basically they have been, so jealous that they've been like, how have you gotten, this kind of exclusive access to government and city facilities and this sort of thing. So although they've gotten this sort of exclusive access in Kansas City, it may not fly in other places. So expanding it on this sort of scale, this rapidly may be a stumbling block. It may be something that they're going to run up against when they try to expand it in other places. And also, other companies are, once they see, like they've already seen what Google is trying to do, so they're going to try and get that same competitive advantage.
Let me hold on. Let me talk to what Monica's saying, because you got to look back at the genesis of this. Remember, they did a contest for localities. They would submit bids. Cities across the country and towns, counties presumably submitted bids to be the spot where they would do this. And Kansas City won out, so they did get a sweet deal. What they did was they set that bar. And other localities, and they're going to do the same thing again. They're going to negotiate with other localities, and they're going to try. And what's going to happen is, as more and more people get this, there are going to be more and more Craig Shipps out there saying, I want it too. And we're going to see, I draw a distinct comparison to this and Uber, the innovative I don't know what you call it, livery service, where it's sort of like a taxi, but you can use an Android app to call a cab. You can look at ratings just like on eBay for these drivers and decide, okay, I want, this guy, he's got a 5-star rating and he's 3 miles away, and then you can track him on the app, and you pay through the app. But no money changes hands. The tip's included. It's more expensive than a cab, but less expensive than a private car, and people love it. And they've run into regulation hurdles in all these cities. But what's happening is in D.C., which is near me, I covered the city council meeting when they went into this. They are getting pushed. The council, they're initially reluctant to allow it because the taxi companies are lobbying them and donating money to their campaigns.
Sure.
But what's happening is the people are rising up and saying, we want this. This service is good. You had an African-American council on there who said, these are the only guys who will go to my neighborhood. And
Exactly.
we
That's
want
right.
this service.
And-
So
and-
let's talk about it in that context, because I think it's fantastic. I think the politicians are going to be forced to cut the deals, and they, often the municipalities in some towns and cities, they often own the telephone poles, and the companies will pay like $3 a month to hang their wire on that pole, that kind of thing. They can cut all these kind of deals. Craig?
Well, and what I was going to tell Monica in response to her statement was, great if others, if Comcast in one jurisdiction where they have coverage or whatever, if they see what Google is doing and they feel threatened, and they now all of a sudden say, okay, go to the town and say, okay, what kind of deal can we work? And we want to give everybody a gigabit up and a gigabit down. Great. I don't care who does it.
That's right.
I just think a fire needs to be lit under these people to say that we need it. We need this high quality service. It has to be affordable. It has to be basically exactly what Google is doing.
Yeah, but just think about it. Just think about Verizon, right? Verizon Fios. They stopped the installing.
That's right, because they had a monopoly.
Because they couldn't
well,
get the profit margins up out of it.
Monopoly is horrible for the market.
So exactly.
It's absolutely horrible.
Google is pressing the market to respond, and they have to, because competition breeds more price pressure or cost pressures.
And the important thing is Google has the resources and the wherewithal to challenge these incumbents. See, we haven't had anybody come along that can muddy the waters and cause problems and go into a place like Kansas City and stir things up the way they have. And quite frankly, if they do a lottery list like they did and some other community steps up, I bet you another community is going to step up and say, we'll even give you more concessions than Kansas City did. It's going to be a competitive environment.
That's what happens.
And
It's like competing for who's going to build the next shopping mall in the suburb or in the main town.
yeah, and that's right. And you get these jurisdictions competing for this service. I know that I know the president of the Board of County Commissioners in Frederick County right now. I know good and well they'd roll out the red carpet for Google. So,
and that's why other providers are giving free Wi-Fi, like Comcast is offering free Wi-Fi hotspots throughout the cities, because they realize they can't. There's pressures for them to provide more service for what their exorbitant costs are.
I like the shopping mall analogy, because I've got to wonder, at what point in the future are these fiber hoods going to be abandoned by the current sellers, and everyone's going to go, hey, what happened?
Well, but Alan, you're right. Something else might come along, some better way of distributing this high-speed service. Maybe it's some kind of wireless service that we don't know about yet, that'll just be bulletproof, reliable, and lightning fast, and makes all the fiber obsolete. But I mean, these things happen.
Well, but I mean, not even that. But at some point, you've got to start upgrading your technology, and we don't know if if Google or whoever is going to inherit this technology, this infrastructure in the future, is actually going to want to spend money to upgrade it. I mean, that's been the problem with cable companies. They don't want to spend the money because they don't see the cost benefit to them. That's part of the problem with phone companies, is they don't want to do the upgrades because they don't see the cost benefit.
Well,
but then someone comes in and cleans their clock, right?
Yeah,
That's
they'll see it if they lose their customers left and right. And
well, what Alan is saying, though, fiber is
to Google.
No. I'm saying what happens when go Anthony. You've got my point, I think.
Fiber is fiber is very expensive relatively, especially compared to coax or what. Anyways, to cable. Fiber is
Cat 5. Yeah.
What
Coax and Cat
actually
5.
what I've seen lately is that fiber isn't that expensive. Is the breakdowns that I've seen.
When we've run it, it's expensive. Let me do a quick poll about this cost-benefit analysis, starting with Alan and then alphabetical order down the room. How much would you right now? Internet base price is about $60, right? Nationwide, that's the entry level for real internet. Google's selling it cheaper. But Alan, how much would you pay for Google Fiber where you live?
That's a good question. I mean, if they actually offered, I don't know. Part of it is if they offered a decent television service as opposed to this thing that actually. Well, okay. You want a solid number?
500 megabytes up and down or and up. I mean, real internet. What would you do? Well, Alan, what would you pay?
I honestly don't know. My current budget says I'd pay no more than 100 for voice, video, internet, and how I divide that, I don't know.
Anthony,
I agree. $100 is just my budget, and I could not pay more than $100 for internet. Period. No matter if it was 1 billion megabits per second, I could not pay more than $100.
Craig, what about you? And we're talking residential now, right? Because they're only doing residential.
If it included mobile, I'd pay $200 a month.
Oh, that's a whole different thing.
If it was just fixed, $100 a month.
Jeff?
Yeah, all depends if you could bundle other things behind it. So, I would pay $60 and for internet, and if it's fiber, great. But if it's $100 and I can do a bundle with voice and other things included in TV and things like that, then it changes the game a little bit.
Monica.
I guess I'd have to go with the median. I have a rather restricted income, so I guess I'll go with the lower end of the scale. Of what
So
people
60, 100 if it's a bundle with everything.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael.
So everybody saying 100. I'm gonna say $1.
Price is right, winner.
Yeah, I'll say $100. That was what I thought initially.
Come on down.
Michael Ellis.
I'm in the bundle crowd. I'd be fine with $100 if it included everything. Although I have to admit, the television package and the phone, or the equivalent of landline phone numbers, is of practically no interest to me. So I'd be happy to pay $100 for really high quality internet.
All right, guys, get the comments ready. We're getting some good comments on this. Pam, what would you pay?
I'd pay 100 just for the internet.
I would too, easily. I might pay 200 for it. I'm with you.
Yep.
But then I have special needs. Shriek, you're a rich guy.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, rich enough. Yeah, I pay $120 for TV with HD and all this stuff together with a 30 Mbps, 35 Mbps Comcast connection. I'm willing to pay $125 for a great connection.
Just for the internet or for the whole deal?
I would pay $125 for the internet alone if it's a gig.
We're gonna have to get you subtitles, Shriek. All right, Anthony, tell us what we got.
So Linda says $100 is the max I would pay. eWallace says.
eWallace, go ahead. You got it.
Says the FiOS was $89 per month as the VDSL here in Arizona in the 90s, and I think that's all I have.
I guess VDSL, that's Verizon DSL. Oh, the Verizon DSL is $90.
Here was his earlier description. He lived in a small city in Texas that had FiOS at 150 up, 150 down, 50 up, and moved to Arizona that had VDSL, which is a shared 20 down, 860 up. Am I reading that right? Verizon had stated that was Verizon, and they stated that for a while they had the corner on the Arizona market. And we just got this one in from Carlos saying I'd pay $120 for internet and fiber TV combined. Sorry, Anthony.
So really, it's about what they're currently charging. That people we want the extra speed with two exceptions, me and Pam. We all want the same price, but we want just faster service.
I got to tell you my cable story. Actually, my cable company just sent me a letter in the mail saying, hey, we noticed that your promo rate is up, and my promo rate is about $100 a month. So we're going to sign you up for your new promo rate for the next 6 months, which is only $15 more. And it happened that in the exact same mail, I got a letter from Verizon saying, hey, we bet your cable contract is up shortly, and so we're going to give you a deal, $80 a month, no contract for 1 year, or if you sign up for 2 years, we'll give you $300 free and clear, but there's a termination fee if you end earlier. Sure. And I looked at the details of the termination fee, and it essentially boils down to $10 a month for the rest of the 2 years that you haven't paid for. So let's see, they're giving me $300. My downside is I may have to pay up to $230.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what
and
I
it's
got.
Cheaper.
In the cable company's defense, they were hit with this out of the blue. The internet is dramatically fast now compared to what it was a few years ago. And of course, we're old enough, except for Michael, for the dial-up days.
Dan, back up a second. Hit out of the blue? They've been ignoring Moore's Law for 10 years.
But they were hit out of the blue by Google doing this. That's fair. That's
Google.
fair. I mean, but they weren't expecting someone to be.
No, but Dan,
it's not. They're not. Google Fiber is not currently profitable, right?
No, but here's the thing. There were municipalities that were saying, hey, wait a minute, we've got only one game in town that's giving us diddly squat, so we're going to string fiber ourselves.
Well, but again, the mobile's the real issue. When you're at home.
But they weren't blindsided by somebody doing it.
Correct. But the publicity that Google got and the threat, the imminent threat that a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's a worldwide one of the top known brands everywhere, them doing it is a game changer. And all the publicity, and all of a sudden people are like, why can't I have this? And so I know like Comcast is up their speeds. I pay, I think, about $90 or $100 a month. I have Comcast Business Premium, and I had to do a 2-year agreement, and there's like a $250 install charge, but if you do a 2-year agreement, I forget what it is, but if you basically say, I'm not going to pay the install charge, they waive it, which is pretty cool. And I get like 90 down and about 10 to 20 up, depending on what time of the day it is or whatever. Right now, I couldn't do a speed test because I've got 2 different Hangouts going, so that would affect it. But it's dramatically fast. I never have a problem, and it's $90 a month. I used to have the lower tier, which was $60 a month. That's the entry level, and then for $5 a month, I can get the local TV channels. So that's really cool. So I get the ABC, NBC, PBS, and the crap channels. I don't get CNN or Fox News, so I just stopped watching them. I just watch whatever they put online because the lowest tier, I think it was like $90 to be able to get CNN or Fox or something additional. So I was like, it ain't worth it. I mean, I have Netflix. And I have Amazon Prime.
Right.
And we're going to form a support group with Craig about people who have Amazon Prime and just spend money. Like, it's crazy because it's so easy. But I think, it's I've watched this as it has progressed. And it is better, but it's nothing like Google Fiber. But for most people's needs, most people want to watch Netflix. They want to get, Facebook and stuff like that. And the commonly available plans are fine for that. This is just wow, and nobody's using. I mean, what practical application could you have for 700?
Which I think
megabytes?
is something that we
Come
need
on.
to touch on is like 700 megabits per second for residential connection, which Google only wants residential connections. Is absolutely absurd. I don't know
Anthony,
if a person.
No, they will. It won't be. It won't be long term, Craig. But Anthony's right. There is no application I can think of.
What are you going to do with a 700 megabit per?
What would you do with it, Craig?
Connection?
Craig,
Back up a second.
What are you trying to do? Like stream 15 Netflixes at the same time?
Okay,
I mean,
yes.
seriously.
Yes.
Let me give you a specific example. I did a short video today. I think it's like 4 minutes long or something, and it's 1080p. And it took me about 15 minutes to upload that to YouTube. I would be tickled pink if it would just upload in 5 seconds. That'd be great for me.
But you're using it as we're talking about difference between residential and business.
No, but
even
the
if
point
even
is,
if I shoot a video of my toddler or something, and I want to share it with my aunt or something,
guys,
I want it uploaded instantly.
Guys, look at what we're doing right now. I mean, earlier Dan said, "Won't it be awesome if we've got 720p for Hangouts
or 1080p?"
But
well,
you don't need
he
a.
said 720.
You don't.
Yeah,
But you wouldn't need 700
Alan,
megabytes.
I can broadcast at 720p. We all can do that.
Just not on
10,
Hangouts.
You can have 10 720p video streams coming into your house.
But the film strip doesn't need to be 720p.
Why
I
not?
suppose if you're like,
can.
you
No, it
know,
doesn't need to
We
be.
want it all
What
to
if
be.
you
We
can?
want
The
it all.
film
We're
strip
Americans.
can't
We
be
want it all.
720.
look, if you
Yeah.
I suppose if you have 12 kids and they all have iPads and they're all simultaneously watching different television shows, then this would come in handy. But come on, I mean
It'll come in handy, period, Dan. Think about it. If you've got a hard drive in your computer and you want to access that hard drive and get information off that hard drive, would you put up with it being as slow as your internet connection is right now?
I mean, but here's the thing.
drives are
You know,
slow.
you kind of toss off the, if you've got kids, you're going to watch a lot of TV. But here's the thing. Right now, their television service is just like old-fashioned television service. With fiber, one of the things that they're going to be able to do is give you real video on demand. They're going to give you a real DVR that lives on their premises, not on your premises.
That's what
you
I was
can ask for
saying,
any show, anytime, on demand.
Alan,
You know
that's
what,
the
though?
point. That's the point I was just making.
But
In your-
Craig,
your
you just
local
made.
computer. You want lightning fast access to your hard
But
drive.
you just made.
All I'm saying is we want lightning fast access to the cloud.
Well, and I understand that, but you just made a point that you just made the wrong point by trying to make your point when you talked about hard drives. Hard drives, the maximum output on a regular hard drive, as best as I know it, is 6 gigabits per second. Oh, right. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, see what I mean?
But
Okay, so
yeah.
what we're getting with a gigabit up and down is we're getting almost the kind of performance you get accessing your hard drive. We're not getting it quite, but it's going to be transparent to most people.
Well,
most users.
your hard drives are like 6 times faster.
Yeah, it's going to be almost like you're accessing a hard drive. I mean, it's going to be pretty good.
Here's a comment from Christopher. Cable and DSL companies don't want people to have speeds like Google Fiber. In fact, I would actually probably say it's the movie companies that don't want the speed for the reason you're giving. Everyone could all of a sudden broadcast high-def video to friends. Imagine torrents when everyone has that much up bandwidth. And that's part of it, is I don't actually think if the studios and Google Fiber or whoever's running the fiber head end do it right, torrents will die because you're not going to want them, because torrents will be the bad way to do it. You'll just turn it on and you'll get the video you want. You don't have to wait for the torrent to show up from 20 different sites. You ask for it, you got it. This is what iTunes did.
But Alan, Alan,
Monica.
there's a old media is still so vested in making sure that they give it to you the way that they want.
But we're going to crush them. We're going to destroy them. They're going to be down the drain.
Something has to give. Something has to give.
Craig,
Let me tell you something that happened to me this week. And that is such an example of the way that old media and new media just can't reconcile. I have Netflix streaming, and I was watching a show slowly that I really wanted to watch, and basically Netflix decided that they no longer wanted to have this streaming, but they didn't put up a warning that this show will no longer be streaming on December 10th. I was halfway through the season, and on December 10th they basically yanked it, and then they brought in other popular shows, apparently Breaking Bad is so popular, and they negotiated the rights to that one instead, and so they pulled my show that I was halfway through the season, and then it was gone. And I was like, if you had just warned me, if you just warned me it was going to be gone on this date.
The reason things like that are still happening is because this war is still raging. The old incumbent media.
The reason why things like that are happening is Netflix lost Starz Play.
Craig, but here's the problem with Google Fiber. Google Fiber, when they set up the TV side of it, they essentially capitulated to the old media.
That's
Google
right, they did.
Google
They did,
Fiber
but-
TV is a colossal fiasco in
they
terms of what
did.
they could do.
It's going to take time, but what Google needs to do is Google needs to have their own original content through their partners and so on, through people like Dan.
And that's what YouTube is all about.
That's right. They need to have a ton of original, high-quality content, just like this show, that people can tune in and watch when they feel like it. They can watch it live and interact with the show. Imagine with a gigabit connection the ways they could interact with the show.
Yeah.
And then also watch it later if they want to, whatever. And if there's a ton of this kind of content that's extremely high quality, then the old incumbent media are dead. Bury them.
When he said,
well, and I'll tell you what else. Well, I'll tell you what else works is giving the consumer a choice. Like when you watch shows on Hulu and they say, like, would you like to watch this like 4-minute commercial before your show and then be done with commercials for the entire rest of the show? Or would you like to have your show interrupted by commercials every, 3 to 4 minutes?
Yeah,
I like
love
that. Like if you give your the consumer a choice, and they also let you vote on the ads, like they say, was this ad relevant to you? Like, do you prefer to watch ads about tech, or do you want to see like mom ads about Sears or something? That is good. Like, number one, it helps like the ad company know what to show you, and number two, it makes the consumer feel like, well, now I got my ad out of the way, I can watch my show. That's the way it needs to evolve.
Monica, if you cut out a lot of the middlemen, okay, in other words, let's say you have a content producer like Dan who produces a show and it's a really high quality show, and he delivers it through the YouTube platform to millions and millions and millions of viewers because of YouTube's reach. Right, that's very efficient. You don't have a whole bunch of middlemen in the mix, so you don't have to have a whole bunch of ads. You could have just a little pre-roll and maybe something at the end or something in the middle or whatever. Very small amount relative to what we have now, because what we have now is you got so many hands in the pie that all want to make money off that 30-minute TV show, or that 1-hour TV show.
And you don't think the guys who are producing the high-quality content are going to want to make their, decent chunk of change off the show?
They'll be able to make more money than the people that are actually producing the content now, because there aren't going to be all these middlemen in there that want a piece of the action.
But
so
also,
the content,
Craig,
the actual creator will get more money. You just won't have all these fat cats that are putting their hands in the till.
But Craig, there's also the premium content that we can't do in a Hangout, really.
No,
you
but
can do a news show or a
could
talk
produce
show
it.
or a discussion show in a Hangout, but people like to watch Shark Week on Discovery. They like to watch American Idol and X Factor.
It applies to all of those
and
things.
those things.
The West Wing.
The West
What I
Wing.
just
Those are
said-
expensive scripted programs, and
Dan,
when I'm
it
done, when we're
applies-
done with this show, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna probably watch. I forget what show I'm on. Is it Fargo? It's about the sheriff who goes to a town where everyone's working on a secret project.
But
I'm gonna
Dan,
watch a
Eureka.
scripted drama. Eureka. I'm gonna watch a scripted
Okay, but back up a second.
drama
Back
that's
up a
expensive
second.
to produce, and they can't
Dan,
pay for that.
No,
with
no,
YouTube
no,
Kids.
no. You're on the wrong track here. The only reason that they've got to run all of those ads against those shows to try to monetize those shows is because of all the excess fat in the system. If you took the money that actually went into producing that show and paid the actors, paid the director, paid the camera guy, paid just them, just all the people that actually make it happen, cut out all the other fat cats that have their hands in the till, get rid of all of them, all those what I call middlemen. Now all of a sudden you've still got that great high quality content, and the correct people are being paid, not the guys that are just sitting back and
Yeah, but
taking
commercials
these.
don't fund TV shows.
Well, but no, I mean, guys, there is actually some evidence of this. If you go look at some of the studios that have sprung up around YouTube, they are doing high quality stuff, or at least relatively high quality stuff. They're doing it for a relatively low price, and they are raking in the bucks.
And it'll get even better. It'll get even better.
Yeah,
Because
but
the
YouTube,
cameras will
the
get
most
better.
popular stuff on YouTube, of course, is the viral stuff. You happen to have,
Dan,
your kid
while
picks
that's true, there are companies that started with viral stuff and have launched that into real studio quality stuff. that people tune in every week to see.
H plus.
I can't imagine. It'd be neat to see the revenue difference, though, Alan, between what something that airs on, CBS gets in 30 minutes.
I mean, he makes
versus...
this point because you could do Saturday Night Live on YouTube easily with a very small budget, right? I mean, they're just doing small.
Anthony, you don't have to have a small budget. I don't understand why you're all talking about a small budget. You can have just as much money going to the creatives, going to the people that are actually making this thing happen. You don't need the fat cats anymore. They're not needed. They can be dealt out of the game.
You need someone like Netflix that is willing to, in my opinion,
no, Google can
buy the
distribute
content.
it. If Google has the
Where's
network,
the money coming from, though?
The money's coming from the ads that you've got placed on it.
Yeah, because same way Google monetizes everything is they're going to monetize it through search and through all the different ways that they do things, and that's something they got to think about going forward.
Look, Craig, a YouTube video that gets 1 million views makes between 1 million views makes between $1,000 and $2,000. So Bill O'Reilly gets 4 million viewers a night. On YouTube, that will be worth $4,000 gross revenue. Are you telling me that show only generates $4,000 a night? I don't think so.
Dan, you're comparing it the wrong way, though. You're comparing it to Bill O'Reilly. What you need to do is go look at, you said Shark Week. Go look at some of the shows that are being produced for Discovery Channel. Look at some of the shows that are being produced for
Time out. Let me
Seinfeld cost, remember Seinfeld, millions of dollars an episode. Go ahead, Jeff.
Look at Twit. Here's an example of a low budget, right? Person, and he's not doing it on YouTube. No, I mean he's not has ads on YouTube. No way. He has sponsorships.
He is on YouTube, but to get the traction of the live stream.
The point Jeff is making is you can make money other ways, and Dan, the $1,000 or the dollar per 1,000 views or whatever it is that you get on YouTube, you're talking about what the partner is paid. You're not talking about what YouTube is making. YouTube's just giving them a small part of what they're getting for running.
I don't think they're ripping them off. I think they're making. I don't know what they don't reveal it, but I don't think it's.
Does anybody know what the percentage is?
They don't release it. It's secret.
This is why old media still is around, because if I'm making a freaking movie or something, and I see all these people send it to the box office, make billions of dollars, why would I take the risk? That's something that might fail, might not, might do also. But something that's a proven model that they've been using for years that works. Why would I take the risk and do another way?
Because it's not going to work forever.
There's no way with a 320p Hangout or a 1080p homemade YouTube video.
Yeah.
You could do a Steven Spielberg film. You could not make Lincoln and release it just on YouTube and get any kind of revenue to be able to do that.
That's not what we're talking about anymore.
You're not going to be able to make Lincoln and make money the old way anymore either.
They're doing it.
Now, you're not going to be able to do it 10 years from now.
But that's not even what we're talking about anymore. We're talking about small independent studios that have, I don't say they've got a lot, but they've got a modest amount of funding, either from private investors or from Kickstarter, or that they're getting from YouTube, from Google, who's funding them to get started. They're making the movies, they're making the series, and they're distributing it using YouTube. These are not, low quality 320 stuff. This is stuff done with real cameras.
Alan. Absolutely, it's good stuff.
It's going to get better.
Yeah. It's going to get better, and there are some breakout hits. But
as this happens, Dan, it's going to be the death of 1,000 cuts to the guys, the big budget ones that you're talking about. They're going to slowly die off. You're going to have fewer and fewer big blockbusters because you're going to have a lot more choices of other things that people can watch. And when people have choices, they have options. I'm not watching network TV right now.
But you know what, though? We want to watch Lincoln, Craig. We want to watch Lincoln. We want to watch American Idol or X Factor, and those things are expensive to produce.
I can only watch one thing at a time.
I think the market, but the market tells you that the blockbusters do make money. They make billions of dollars.
They're going to be fewer and fewer.
And they cost $250 million to make.
The problem, Jeff, but here's the thing. Yes, we do know that blockbusters make, beaucoup money that, the end people never see. Ignoring that, though, What we also know, though, is that independent studios can also make blockbusters for a pittance. I mean, just the fact that a studio is going to throw tons and tons of money at something does not guarantee success.
Name 3.
That's right.
That is correct.
You all talk about the blockbuster.
It's the exception to the rule, though.
Yeah, but
right?
no,
it's not.
No,
yes,
no,
it is. Go back to what Michael asked. Name 3 blockbuster movies that were low budget.
Jeff, most of the relatively big budget movies that are produced fail.
That spy one, that science fiction paranormal one was one. That's a rare example of one that was done by some kid. The Blair Witch Project. Yeah.
So the reason a lot of so here's why movies rarely, if ever, fail, because you have to take.
Fail, Monica. Nowadays.
Well, Craig, though, the reason that they don't fail is because you can't just take in the box office revenues from America. They are counting on the revenues from overseas, and then they're counting on the revenues from the royalties from the stuff that they're going to show on television and the release this year and the release 10 years down the road. Almost every single movie. Yeah,
they have to milk everything they can out of it. That's right, in order to pay the behemoth organizations that they've built up all this huge overhead, and that's why they're going to fall. Is because of all that huge overhead, and that's why fewer and fewer of them actually make big money. You hear about the ones that do. You don't hear about all the ones that are mediocre and some of them that actually lose money. You don't hear about all of those. You just hear about the big blockbusters that are fewer and fewer and farther between than they used to be.
No, I totally disagree.
Some of them, some of these that are mild successes.
Okay, Craig, let me give you some numbers here. Craig, in 2011, oh gosh, what is it? 30 Google websites. I guess it's 1/4, 7 billion. Or 69% of total revenues. So their whole revenues are about 10 billion a quarter, right? Is that right? So 40 billion a year, whatever it is. Avatar, one movie, has generated $2.8 billion so far.
Is that the gross?
That's the gross.
Okay.
And the gross, we're comparing gross and gross.
Yeah.
So
there's no way.
There's this great website called boxofficemojo.com. There's a lot of data that you can look up on there, and I really recommend it if you want to see like what a movie has earned here and then what it's earned overseas. They track the revenue over time. It's a really good way to track that kind of thing.
I just want Craig to give me 3 examples that something that was low budget that just knocked it out the park.
Low budget.
Okay,
no, I'm not
okay,
saying.
you ready?
No,
hang on.
Even high budget.
Michael, you ready? Momentum?
Never heard of it.
I saw it.
Even I've heard of it, and I know nothing about movies.
I would say Blair Witch Project was one of the bigger ones.
Blair Witch Project is the classical one. I'm going through a list right now.
Someone's dinner's done. Someone check your microwave.
Really?
See, Michael,
Napoleon Dynamite?
The point that I've been making is not that these small, low-budget productions are going to be mega box office, superstars. What I'm saying is that they're all going to cut into the mega, super pictures, because you're going to have a lot more choices, and therefore you have less time to consume this other content.
Michael,
Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Avengers 1, Avengers 2.
Michael, how about Little Miss Sunshine?
How about Batman series?
You all go and you buy the stock in these big companies. You buy the stock in these big companies that are producing these pictures and all, and call me 10 years from now and let me know how that stock did.
Well, what is the premise of your argument?
Of them. Buy their stock now and let me know 10 years from now how they're doing.
What is the premise of you guys' argument here?
So one thing I think sparked the argument. Wait. I want to backtrack. I do want to backtrack because I do think what sparked the argument was the collapse of old media versus the rise of new media, and that like this new media
entertainment
is about is kind of this new like indie style, like where it's not very overproduced, and it's not these old like the old stories that are going to make millions, possibly billions of dollars that Hollywood's investing in.
Yeah, Monica, it's about the new media model, which we all love and embrace, and we're currently using it right now.
Yeah.
The new media model does not generate the gross or net revenues that the old media model does. So the problem is, how do you pay to produce the next Steven Spielberg type drama if it's only going to go out on the internet? How do you do it? And we're all looking for that because we want to watch that content. Go Anthony's comment.
Well,
we want that content. We want that we want to watch the movie Lincoln. But if it's not
Dan,
making
to
so much
Anthony's
money,
quote.
Anthony.
Go to the quote that Anthony
All right,
gave.
Anthony next. Anthony, right now.
All right, so David says the entire revenue model in television is already breaking down. So expensive to produce scripted dramas, so we see so many cheaper reality shows. A tough environment out there.
Yeah, a lot of those shows you could do. You could do
Absolutely.
you could do a court show and a hangout. You could do Judge Judy very effectively, the exact same way I do Google Plus Week. The resolution would be less, but you could have people. If there's a lawyer out there. I've thought about doing this. I've actually talked to 2 local lawyers. I think it would be fascinating to have a weekly show where you have like 2 or 3 different disputes resolved using a hangout. And they could be in different cities, countries, whatever. And you get some retired judge to do it. It would lend itself very much to that.
Well,
Dan,
But
there's a
scripted dramas
podcast.
are the shows like scripted dramas or big event television like American Idol when you have Christina Aguilera and
let me
Justin
make just one
Bieber in the
point.
show.
So you
They're
don't
not
like
gonna do that
watching
for
West Wing, huh?
$4,000. I love watching.
Dan,
West
Dan,
Wing is an example.
Dan,
How are you going to do
Dan,
that? How are you going to pay
Dan,
Martin Sheen
Dan,
and these
Dan,
guys, Craig?
The point is this. The point is very simple. Just because we want it doesn't mean that we are going to get it. We like to have an evening newspaper called the Washington Star. It was great. And in 1980, whatever it was, they went out of business.
So you're
right?
saying that we're going to
Just
have to
because
settle
we
for
like
lesser
it and we
quality
want
content.
It doesn't mean it's going to be around.
So we're going to have lesser quality content as a result
Dan,
of this.
actually,
Generally
Dan-
speaking, yes.
Dan, I gotta tell you, keep saying where are we going to get Martin Sheen and so forth. I gotta tell you, there are a lot of actors out there who are at least as good as Martin Sheen, who are currently waiting tables in New York City, and they would love a chance to do this sort of thing.
But there's
These
a
are real
true,
legitimate actors
that's
who
true,
are
but then
really
they
good.
become famous, and then they're. I mean, just like let's face it, we're going to have
Then
more.
they become. Dan,
the
then
names
then
work.
they become
Sometimes
famous.
they
They
are
move on
changed.
to the higher class ones, and the next starving artist moves in.
So this is not the higher class ones, but what?
So
gonna
why
hurt, Dan. It's
why
gonna
do you think there's HBO and paid for content? Because they put out great content and people want to buy it. And that's what it is, right?
This
I
gets
think
back.
there
This
is
gets
still
back
gonna
to the
be-
same argument I asked Richard Gingras earlier. How do you, on the web, generate enough revenue in a small town? If you want to send a good reporter who can actually knows the town council and writes up a story, how do you send them and pay them $25 to $50 to cover a meeting, right? So they can earn a living doing this, and then put up a web post that gets 50 cents in total, because it's a local small town. There's no solution for this yet. Go ahead,
Dan.
Alan or Anthony, who has a comment, and then Craig.
Well, I think we should go to Anthony's comment, and that's going to be the wrap up.
All right.
So Kevin Bryan wants to know why. I'll just read it straight. Why does anyone argue with Craig tonight? He's always right.
Well,
And
that
with
settles
that,
it.
I think we all agree.
Okay.
Content creation is on fiber, on fire in the future.
And YouTube is the revenue model that will fix everything.
There were
Okay.
thousands of car manufacturers when Henry Ford.
Next topic.
Next
Let
topic
it
here
go,
at,
Greg. Let it go.
21920. We have something I just added because I got a post from Chi.
Yes.
Chu, the Hangout guru. Alan, you want to hit this?
Yeah, let me hit this one quickly. This is kind of news to me as well. Apparently, if you use WebRoot.com as your antivirus, it appears to be interacting kind of badly with Hangouts right now. And you might be seeing no video in your Hangouts if you use this antivirus due to an update that they did this week. Google is working with them. They hope to get it resolved, but in the meantime, disable WebRoot while you are in your Hangout, and your video should return.
Okay, so this is likely a temporary issue, but something we should note. And
Microsoft Essentials.
In case it burns any of you.
Okay, so at 2:20:15, sorry, I've got to do guess I don't have to watch the whole thing again just to do time codes. I'm not sure who put this in here, but and I have not read it. I apologize because, again, Pam and Sreek and I and several of you in here were all freaking out today trying to follow the coverage of this horrific thing that happened in Connecticut. But Larry Page, so I haven't read this. I apologize. I'm not sure who put it in, if it was Alan or whoever.
I put it in, but I had only partly read it at the time, and I hadn't fully read it since. But it's a fascinating interview that Larry Page did with Fortune magazine, or Fortune, or whatever they call themselves. And I thought I had found the video of it somewhere, and I can't find the video at the moment. This was a transcript of the interview, and it's just a wonderful, long conversation that he has on a whole pile of topics. Just kind of asking, where is Google going? What are you guys doing? And his answer is kind of like, he wants to say, yeah, we're a different company. When we think about where we want to go, we just kind of say, let's find something new and different and go that way. That's kind of, to quote him, choosing what to do. We want to do things that will motivate the most amazing people in the world to want to work on them. Self-driving cars, better transportation. That's a social good. That's the kind of thing that encourages employees, and it's good for the company. It's an economic good for them. He says, I like it when we're picking problems like that. Big things where technology can have a really big impact. And we're pretty sure we can do it. And whatever the technology investment we need to do that, it's not going to be that huge compared to the payoff. And that's, it kind of grabs me. There aren't too many companies that have that kind of big picture thinking nowadays. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, they've got to put that kind of investment in. But once they do, the payoff is huge. So it's a decent sized risk. It's not a massive risk, but it's a decent sized risk for what could be a huge reward.
Also, Craig, remember on that topic about the money they've invested with the YouTube creators, they get that back because they get all or a percentage of the revenue from the ads. And even if they shut it down, they still get the revenue until they recoup their investment. So it is an investment. It's not a blank check and they don't get the money back, which is fine. That's a good thing. That's the way movie studios work.
Google has an altruistic arm, and this isn't it. But so Google takes calculated risks on its investments, but they're calculated risks, and you know what? Even if not all of them pay off, enough of them pay off in enough ways that they want to keep doing that kind of a risk. Couple of other good quotes from this interview. This one I like. They're kind of talking about how we've got four, they say three, I think it's four, major companies now that are all kind of in different spaces but are competitors to each other. They cite Apple, Google, and Amazon. Completely different business models. Each of the three are doing things in completely different ways, but they're competitors to each other. So we kind of, asked him to talk about that, and he goes, I actually view that as a shame when you think about it that way. All the big technology companies are big because they did something great. I'd like to see more cooperation on the user side. The internet was made in universities, and it was designed to interoperate. And as we've commercialized it, we've added more of an island-like approach to it, which I think is somewhat a shame for users. This is the head of Google saying, hey, maybe we've done a bad thing by creating these walled gardens, and admitting that his company is probably doing the same thing. So, they said, in light of that, Apple's still a partner. You and Steve Jobs were friendly, and at times. So there's kind of this acknowledgement. They're competitors, but they're also, in a way, working together to create, to further this open internet.
And you can see that in Google's attempts to push their products onto iOS, like Maps. They want Maps to be on iOS, and they want Google Plus to be, they want their products to be on iOS because part of that is penetration. If you're on other platforms, you're penetrating with your product, and yes, it acknowledges the competition, but you get more. The penetration is worth the acknowledgement.
And actually, we even are still seeing Google and Apple are kind of teaming up in some ways. I mean, just this week, and this is something that I forgot to put in the notes, we see that Google and Apple are teaming up to buy Kodak's patents.
Well, and they're basically, a lot of that acknowledgement, I think, in the article is basically just the acknowledgement that they're caught in this same system. It's like when it goes back to that article we had probably a couple months ago now, in which they were having to step up their aggressiveness on patents, basically because they're forced to, because of the environment in which they are in. Because when the other side gets aggressive, they have to get aggressive back. And so, yeah, it would be great if they weren't forced to be in these walled gardens sort of environment, but they have to. Like it would be great if we didn't live in an environment in which copyright was so outdated and such a monster that was preventing us from doing anything useful. But we live in the real world, and so we have to work in it.
So I can see
Anthony, go ahead.
So Alan, as far as the codec patents go, how much do you think that this is Google and Apple wanting to work together compared to Google and Apple not wanting, compared to Google and Apple wanting to pay $500 million together for the patents instead of getting into a bidding war and paying $1 billion for
it's
one of
them?
them?
It's a good question, but in the past, when Microsoft and Apple teamed up for the, I want to say Nokia patents, but don't quote me on that. They went to Google and said, "Hey, do you want to come in with us on this purchase?" And Google said no. So either this is Google,
Google
getting
did
smart.
Google did bid up the price of that, right? I think they put in a relatively high but still low bid, and then the group of companies bought it for a higher price.
Yeah, but again, this is it Google now saying, okay, we're not going to fight Apple just out of spite. We're going to team up with them because it makes strategic business sense. And how does that carry over with Google wanting to put apps on iOS? Well, it makes good business sense for them to do so.
Well, remember the reason that they switched, Alan, was oh dear, who do we lose? Or we got? Okay.
We didn't lose any.
Alan, remember the reason they switched is because Google wouldn't give them turn-by-turn navigation, and that's the reason that they started developing their own the epic
Google
failure that was Apple Maps, and now they have it right on iOS.
I mean, with the new iOS, with the new Google Maps for iOS, yeah, they've got it. But it's interesting. I mean, Apple didn't want to pay. Apple had a contract with Google for Google Maps on iOS originally, and now they don't. So, before Google was getting direct revenue, and now Google is getting indirect revenue. You got to wonder why Google thinks that makes sense, but apparently they do.
Wouldn't you have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting?
So
I don't think my stomach could take it.
I know that this is not the topic that we're talking about, but it, obviously it hits very
That's
close
fine.
to home, for me personally. But another argument that you can make about the Apple and Google teaming up to buy Codex patents is, could Apple or Google afford to not get those patents? So they agreed to buy them together because the camera patents are very critical to any modern smartphone these days because there's a camera on every smartphone.
Sure, but
So
look
if you don't have those patents, you basically are potentially saying that you can't have a camera on the back of your phones.
Sure, but look at it from Apple's point of view now, where Apple is saying, "Hey, why are we going?" Apple, who wanted to destroy Google's smartphone ambitions before, is now saying, "Okay, maybe we're going to work with them to make sure we have nice and clear access to patents that we rely on."
I would kind of agree with that point that you made, but it wasn't so much Apple, at least in my opinion, it wasn't so much Apple saying that we wanted to destroy Google as much as it was Steve Jobs saying that he wanted to destroy Google. And I personally don't feel that Tim Cook has that agenda that he feels like he needs to destroy Google. And in fact, I would almost say that Tim Cook is afraid that in an attempt to destroy Google that they would destroy themselves.
No, that's a very good
destruction.
point. That was a very good point.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, mutual destruction, or a poor attempt at destroying one company.
I like it when they do these joint agreements, and then we'll go to Jeff. I'm sorry. I like it when they do these joint agreements in the sense that they're not going to be suing each other, but at the same time, it's not good for the small players trying to enter the market, right?
Yeah, but you got to look at it from the idea it's it's opportunity loss. So if they spend all this time in working in a competitive type of role and everything is patent infringement, patent lawsuits, it's hard for them to plan in the future. So it's opportunity lost for them. So I think in them working collaboratively, they can go ahead and and start planning for the future. And they both realize.
I don't think
Dan, one of Anthony's points is that actually this might be better for the smaller ones, because if it was Apple and Google each went in individually, they might be bidding against each other and driving the price sky high. As it is now, they're putting in a relatively low bid, and $500 million is,
not what those patents are worth. I mean, let me tell you something. Being from Rochester, those patents are worth a lot more than $500 million. I mean, we're talking about $1 billion on the low end, and I think that a lot of agreed upon numbers were at $1.2 billion. But to talk to Dan's point, I would almost say that this is good for the small guys, because Google does not want to box the small guys out. They want as many people using Android as possible. So they're going to cross-license those patents to the smaller companies.
How do they determine which patents anyone is allowed to pay a fair price and everyone pays the same price, and the patents that you can't use?
Well, it's the decision of the company. Whatever makes sense for them.
Aren't there federal regulations about this though? Like you can't, someone couldn't box someone from making a cell phone, for example, or whatever.
I forget what it's called, but it's something. They're basically critical technological patents that, and I don't know specifically how this works, but in general, critical patents to a particular type of mass use technology, you have to provide at a fair market price.
Fair and reasonable is the term. Oh, sorry, fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. So basically,
I could tell HTC, you have to pay $10 for this patent, but I couldn't tell Sony that they have to pay $15 for that patent if it's a critical patent for that type of technology. Is that accurate, Aaron?
That's pretty accurate, yeah.
So it's similar to like the word Kleenex becomes into the common domain, and
I don't think it's anything like that.
Yeah,
I mean it becomes a common. It's so widely used, whatever. But
the difference though is, I mean, to use your Kleenex analogy, it would mean that if Kleenex becomes such a common term, but that
they don't defend it.
Even if but it becomes a common enough term, and that everyone wants to use it, that everyone wants to license the term Kleenex, that they would have to license that term on an equitable basis. But that's not how our trademark system works.
Once again, it's back to the Kleenex analogy.
It's not a good example.
Yeah.
I apologize.
So Xerox, they created the term, you Xerox something, which is photocopying something, right? Should I just shut up?
Well,
No,
we
you're
can
fine,
stop
you're
because
fine.
it's an irrelevant. I mean, Dan derailed the whole thing.
All right, I
And,
apologize.
and now Dan and Pam are sharing a not so private joke.
And
Sorry.
we're IMing, and that's even worse than the internal chat or anything we're saying on the air. Okay, so are we good on this? Larry Page gave a speech.
Yeah, he gave a speech. There's a lot of stuff there. I suggest people go and read it. He even talks about Google Plus in it, which is, amazing. It means he knows what Google Plus is.
I think that the
That was
most
a dig.
important thing, I might interject, the most important thing that you all haven't really focused in on, at least not that I've heard, is he kind of opined that search as we know it may not be the future, and that he almost really came right out and said it, to tell you the truth. And I think that's good that they acknowledge that, because I think they really live in a glass house, because they're as I've said before, one trick pony. Search is it, and mostly web search is where they're making their money. So now that he sees that might have a sunset to it, hopefully they'll come up with something else to replace that. But maybe they won't.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, what he does say is, he starts talking about these other things and says, it's difficult for me to sell that to my investors because they don't understand that I need to be investing in the future. And he says, and I've got to make sure that they invest in the future. So it's interesting. There's a lot revealing in the article. A very good point, Craig.
I was really impressed with it.
Okay, so we all agree the speech was fantastic, and we're all excited that Larry Page was discussing Google Plus. So at 2:36, this is so ghetto that I have to do this. I need a producer. 2:36:40, I'm going to switch topics. This is interesting. I saw this. I didn't. These accounting things are so interesting, but complicated. It's hard to do it. A lot of these tech companies, and Google gets picked on because they're big, in the same way that Walmart gets picked on a lot when they're not doing anything that other major retailers aren't doing. They have some offshore entities that are in low tax areas, and there's a big thing about this. It's a shame that we're so late in Europe, because it'd be interesting to get some feedback from like Mike Downs or Lord Parker on this stuff, because they're dealing with this overseas, and they're calling it tax dodging. But corporate executives have a fiduciary duty to make the most money for their shareholders, right? And none of us voluntarily pay more tax than we're obligated to pay. So this is a complicated thing, and under the video and in the Google Plus post that some of us will share, there'll be a link to this. But here's one example of what you could do. Let's say Craig Shipp has Area Guides, which is a very successful network of websites that highlight local businesses. People love them. Let's say that he makes $3 million a year, and he makes $2 million of that in profit. Well, what he could do is he could go to a country that has a very low tax rate, like Bermuda or Ireland, whatever, or a country that he made a deal with, what have you, and he could create a corporation there, sell the name for $1, Area Guides, to that corporation in Bermuda, and then each year pay a licensing fee for his U.S. operations to use the name Area Guides. So it's the same shareholders, which would be Craig, owning both entities, right? But he's taking his $2 million profit, and he's paying a $1.9 million licensing fee to the Bermuda corporation. Totally legal, right? But the end result is, instead of paying the U.S. corporate tax rate, which is extremely high compared to other countries, not all, but the general westernized countries, he would save a fortune in taxes. Now that money's stuck there for some period of time, but they build up this cash, and then they wait until taxes get lowered, or for whatever reason they invest it in something. but it's a way to avoid taxes. It's totally legal, and it meets their obligation. So that's kind of like one small example of the kind of things they're talking about. When they say, they're tax avoidance or things like that, it's not like someone's hiding something. These are filed on paper. They're saying we're doing this and it's legal, 100% legal, but then some folks think it's not fair. And Amazon's getting hit, Google, all these companies. So
in particular,
let me go to Alan, and then you guys can.
It's some lawmakers who think it's not fair.
Who get to spend the money that the taxes. So Alan or Craig or Michael, I think Michael has some strongly. He's kind of like, I see wisps of smoke.
I have some strong words too
coming out. Okay, Monica and Michael, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm guessing you two are going to disagree on this. So go ahead, Monica.
You guys go first.
Okay, Michael, and then Monica will tell us why we're wrong.
You ask Michael Ellis or Michael Banks?
Michael Ellis, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so Google is doing what corporations are responsible to do for their shareholders. They're preserving as much cash as they can for the shareholders, who are the ones who put up the money. There is nothing illegal or illicit. This is all about pandering people who would like to take someone else's money and put it in someone different pocket.
Michael, it might not be illegal, but is it unethical?
No, it's not unethical because they're simply following the tax laws. Our legislators have created this disaster.
That does not make it unethical or not.
And they got rid of allowing people from doing this. So why are they allowing corporations to do it?
That's fine.
Because the Supreme Court has declared corporations people, so they should have the same rules.
But the beef is not legitimately with Google. The beef is properly placed right at the feet of the legislators.
Absolutely.
Who we do not vote out of office. 95% of the time they win re-election.
Yeah.
And it's just boneheadedness that our electorate continues to put these people in office and allow them to do such stupid things with our tax code.
Okay, before Craig jumps in to agree with you, Monica, go ahead.
So the reason I wanted to wait is because I know you're all here and you're like, now here comes Monica with the big here it's unethical. And actually, I feel Michael has a point, and that I feel that this is really an ethical gray area. And one thing that the government is, especially lately, is corrupt. What people have been doing lately is they get elected to Congress. They see it as just like they don't see it as a long-term thing. People have resigned from Congress, especially Olympia Snow from Maine, because she said, I can do no good here. And basically, when a lot of people have taken seats in Congress and then they resign, they become a lobbyist because they can get a whole lot more money from the system. So it's Congress's job to basically stop things like this from happening. It's not a company's job to police itself. And if this is a legal issue,
right,
then they're not they're not the cop. It's not in their legal interest to do that.
Here's my take on it. Here's my take on it. It's not even just not in their legal interest to do it, in the company's legal interest to do it. If they did do it, they would be facing a shareholder lawsuit.
That's right, and it would be right for the shareholders to go after them for that.
And it's a lawsuit that the shareholders could very well win. In fact, what I think is interesting, though, is it was either the past week or the week before, Eric Schmidt, when addressing this issue, he was asked it, and his answer was, we're following the laws, we're doing the right things according to the law, and if you want us to do differently, change the law. This is Eric Schmidt saying this.
They need to change the law, and furthermore, Google is not the worst offender when it comes to this. There are many, many worse offenders, and most of them are oil companies that
that shelter their profits in various ways.
But they're
Yeah.
simply taking advantage of the laws that we've allowed our legislators to put in place. The corporations are not being evil. They're simply making more money in legitimate, legal ways.
Okay,
And it is our responsibility. Like, if you look at what Iceland has just done, they've basically crowdsourced their own constitution. They've thrown out the politicians who were unable to change the law. They've basically turned things around. And I'm saying that it can be done. It's just up to the people to change the law.
Okay, let me go to Anthony, then to Pam for a rebuttal, and then we're going to move on to the next subject, because I think we're all pretty much in agreement, actually in agreement for once. So, Anthony, your quote quickly.
So Kevin Bryan says, and I'm pretty sure this acronym is for the United States Supreme Court, says it didn't declare corporations people. They simply said corporations have First Amendment rights.
Pam, rebuttal?
No.
Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Oh, wait, one more thing. I just want to, before we end on this, I do want to point out that there is another, and I made a controversial post earlier this week about this, but I'd like to point out that that religious institutions pay no taxes in this country, and that maybe it's time, and they also influence politics, and that maybe it is time that we established a tax on those as well, since they do influence politics very directly. I'm talking about all of them, not in one particular, but just saying.
Alan, I have a different take on it. You're talking about companies parking money outside the United States, right? This is the topic.
Well, we're talking about companies parking money outside the United States to avoid parking money outside of a country to avoid taxes in that country.
Okay, let's take a typical example, GE, right?
Sure.
When did GE stop becoming an American company?
You'd have to start defining an American company.
Exactly. So that's the question. What is an American company?
Well, let me turn that around. Do you think they're a Bermudan company?
No, I'm not saying they are from anywhere. They are a multinational company. That's why they call it MNC.
Okay, so you want the UN to start taxing them?
No, what I'm saying is, whatever they sell in a particular country, whatever revenues they make in that particular country, they should be taxed there.
Okay, when you say revenues, though, how do you define revenues? Are you saying revenues? How do you define revenues?
Let's say Apple sold 1 million cell phones in iPhones in the United States, right?
None which were made there.
I'm sorry?
None which were made there.
Let's even assume that they were made in the U.S.
I don't care where it's made.
You're saying where they're making them, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you're in finance, so you know that revenue actually is income minus expenses, right?
Right.
How can you fiddle with the expenses so that your income is minimal? So, so Apple US now has to license the iPhone trademark from Apple Bermuda. And the amount that they're paying to Apple Bermuda in terms of for trademark licensing amounts to 75% of their non-hardware expenses.
Right.
Okay, so is that legal? Is that ethical? And how do you measure that?
So it is also not just a question about whether it's legal, right? Well, my point is, a truly multinational company, no matter where it produces its stuff and where it sells it, right? You cannot argue that this revenue or this income should all come into America and it should be taxed here.
But I don't think anyone is saying that it should all be there. I think what people are saying, though, is some of these companies, when they are selling things in a country, they are then funneling all of the money out via strange means.
That is because that country allows them to.
It's more than just, which is what we just all agreed on.
Cable. This is the exact same discussion we had about cable and cable companies coming in, Google coming in and being competitive and winning the deal because they made a better mousetrap. Bermuda made a better mousetrap. That's all it is.
Right. So let me tell you this. If you look at currency convertibility, partially and fully convertible, right? if you are an investor in a company like in a country like India,
We
right?
don't even need to talk about currency conversion. Bermuda uses the U.S. dollar.
No, I agree.
Right.
I agree about Bermuda.
There's no right or wrong tax rate, right? It's subjective. It's like saying that this company is evil because they buy their light bulbs at Walmart instead of a higher, more expensive local store.
Exactly.
What's the difference? It's subjective.
Let me tell you this. This is actually against my political beliefs as well as whatever I do. I'm not supporting any of these multinational companies, but I'm saying it is not just a legal matter.
We're agreeing with you. I think we're all in agreement, and somebody's phone is going off.
Okay, let me switch gears. To Monica's point, the reason religions have a tax exempt status is because they are not for profit. They're 501c3s.
No.
Correct me if I'm
complex
wrong.
than that, Dan.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you're gonna pick on them, wouldn't you like look at the Sierra Club? Okay, the Sierra Club believes in wildlife or whatever, and I like them, and they sell T-shirts. They have income, but they're officially non-for-profit. Hospitals where a bunch of people are making 7 and 6 figures are non-profits. They don't pay taxes. Religions, the Catholic Church is a not-for-profit, right? And I imagine the Pope is, I don't know what he makes, but it's
So
he has a plane, stuff
Even
like
a
that.
golden
So here's the question.
there's a real difference, though, between a not-for-profit and a religious organization that basically doesn't have to disclose its income. And I actually have an article. I know you hate to have an article, sprung on you last minute. I could put this
As long as
into
you can
next
summarize it,
week's.
it's fine. It's
Well,
just
I've got a link here. It's from USA Today.
just tell us
and
what it's
from
about.
June of this year, and basically I'll just read you a quote real quick from it. It says, study challenges tax exemption for religious organizations. And it says, according to a University of Tampa professor, the U.S. government forgoes around $71 billion a year by not taxing religious institutions. And he's a professor of sociology who examined U.S. tax laws to see what the U.S. loses through tax exemptions for religious institutions.
So that's
Because they're major money makers, because basically people who go to religious institutions, they tithe, which means they voluntarily give 10% or more of their income to these religious organizations. And so they're not really not-for-profits. They do make major profits, and they don't.
So you're telling me I should be taxed on what I donate?
Well,
Not what you
basically,
donate.
people are voluntarily taxed who go to these religious organizations, but it's a voluntary tax, but it just goes to these religious organizations. And if people actually knew what they were supporting, like a lot of the times it ends up going, to preachers with Mercedes Benzes or.
There's fraud everywhere. I mean, there was a big scandal with the head of the United Way, and they fired the person and stuff. There are all sorts of scandals. The evangelists and stuff.
Not-for-profits do it too.
Absolutely.
I mean, the guy who wrote that book.
So the Salvation Army should be taxed.
Well,
they're a religion.
I can't say for sure about the Salvation Army.
You said all religions. They're a religion.
They're not a religious organization. They're a not-for-profit that has connections to religion.
They are absolutely a quasi-military religious organization.
They are
Monica, they're a church.
They're a church. They're a church.
But Dan, why don't we be honest for a second? What is the real reason why religious organizations are not paying taxes?
Because
the Establishment Clause.
Because the nation was, when we came in here and
they should be
killed the Indians and
the Establishment
Clause took over. Not me, because we came over when the potatoes rotted, but from Ireland. But so I'm innocent of that, and we never had slaves. But yeah, I mean, they could tax it though, Alan. It's not the Establishment Clause.
I got a quick
They
question
absolutely
with that.
could tax religions and nonprofits. They could tax the Sierra Club. They could tax PETA. They could tax churches, etc. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Does that study, Monica, talk about the money that does not come into the government coffers because of nonprofits? Period. Not
You
just
would have to. I put the link in the chat. You're welcome to click through and read it, but since I just literally Googled it 2 minutes ago, I have
Because if
literally
it's-
only read the first third of the
Right.
article.
Someone
if it's
please
simply
add us to the
talking
doc
about-
so we
If it's
can.
talking about religion and it doesn't talk about non-religious nonprofits, then I would say it's a bit biased, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, absolutely. Is a church or
I
Scientology
would say
taxed?
that neither you nor I have read the entire article.
No,
I would
I'm
say
just asking. Yeah, but you're bringing up one part of it. Perhaps it doesn't, or perhaps it does.
Everybody should be taxed. Is the church or Scientology taxed?
So I think we all agree, right?
No.
I think
What's
it's time.
Oh, I have a question.
Here we go.
For, yeah. Yes.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Get ready,
Yes.
Monica. We got 1 minute
Okay.
each, and then we're gonna move on.
Everybody has been taxed on what they bought and sold, and they buy these items. It's all already been taxed. So why does it need to be taxed again?
We get
Because
double
somebody
taxed.
else wants that money instead
That's
of the
right.
person who earned
We
it.
get when you buy a used car, you get taxed again.
Well, but
You know.
Well, I mean, her point's not really.
And when I buy a soda, I get taxed again. I've already had income tax, and I'm taxed again. So
This gets back to
get
where
taxed.
this gets back to my point that taxes are subjective. In Europe, if Coca-Cola buys syrup, if a Coca-Cola bottling company buys syrup and buys bottles,
yeah.
they get taxed a VAT, a value-added tax. And then they
Yeah.
make it, and then they sell it to a distributor, and that distributor pays the VAT. And then when the distributor sells it to the store, they pay the VAT again. And then when the consumer buys it, they pay the VAT. At every stage of the process, Europe, who's currently in financial turmoil, they pay this tax. So they have a sales tax here. But me, when I buy stuff for my newspapers, if I mean, we outsource our printing, but if I had a printing press, when I'd buy paper and stuff, I wouldn't have to pay tax because it's for business.
But Dan,
use.
I could make the counter argument. Dan, I could make the counter argument that in the U.S. that increases the bureaucratic load because now I have to keep track of what stuff is being sold to you for resale and what stuff isn't being sold to you for resale, and charge you tax on some things and not tax on the other, and that increases the bureaucratic load and therefore increases the cost of the item.
Okay, wait.
No, wait. Let's move on.
No, that's
All right, real
exactly
quick,
what I was
Pam.
going to say.
Go ahead, Pam.
Dan, we need to move on. This is not Google anymore. This is about
But I just
the government. Your favorite subject, but maybe we should do This Week in Politics on Thursday night.
On April 1st of last year, we started This Week in Facebook, and now we're going to start This Week in Politics.
By the way, that document does not talk about anything other than religious institutions. It doesn't discuss the lack of money coming from nonprofits elsewhere.
Everyone who makes a profit should be taxed. That's all.
Okay, so next up.
Do we find communities profitable?
Next up, exactly. Should communities...
Nice transition.
Tax every community that's out there. If you have 2 communities, you get double tax. Everybody's taxed.
If I have a payroll tax, then everybody else should have a tax.
Well, I'm going to say I'm happy for the upgrade on my iPhone because now I have communities on my phone. Yes.
All right. I made the point earlier that I think the best place, the best usage and the best interaction you're going to get with communities, 2 of which I've started and haven't posted anything to for a couple days, so I feel guilty. But I think they're niche. I think if they're too big, stuff is going to get lost with spam and stuff. But I think everyone should start a community for your local hometown to try to get some of these Facebook people who come over to Google+. I've recommended to Natalie with Google that they should, when they have like the suggested topics or users or whatever, people you might know, they should add local communities. They should have some algorithm that will determine if there's a community that is locality based or based on your personal interests that Google, of course, knows from over a decade of data they've collected, that those things should pop up. Because one of the big problems we saw in July, everyone came, a lot of people, millions and millions of people came onto Google Plus. They didn't see any of their local friends on here, and they left. So it would be so neat if there were, in Alan, in your town in New York, for example, if there was an active community about that town, and they could have an algorithm to determine, if it's active and real, then they could use that as a way to snag people when they first sign up. And just generally, when you hit explore or whatever, periodically show, like, have you joined the Front Royal Virginia community, in my case. I think for niche community, for tech support and things like that, we've seen some criticism. We've had some criticism on this program about communities. It's
just a little.
It's early, right? It's a little over a week old. But I guess we'll go to Pam, and then
I was just gonna ask you, your local community, your Virginia community, is it public?
If I did it, it would certainly be public.
And
I'm
anyone
going to
can
do
join?
it. I just haven't yet. Sure. I mean,
Okay.
That's a good point. I mean, do you want?
Would it be moderated to join, or would it just be open to the public to join?
I would probably do it open to the public, because you could have someone in Botswana who is contemplating moving to your town and wants to go in there and ask folks, hey, what are real estate prices like, or what's the job market like? We're thinking about visiting there. What's a good restaurant?
Or grew up there and they want to keep following people who have stayed around and talk about old times. There are a lot of reasons why you want to keep some of the. I've been part of community mailing lists and community forums, and they work really well, not just from the locals, but the locals plus the people just a little bit outside the local, and then those who grew up there or want to move there or just have an interest in that location. I've seen a lot of local communities in other forums, and they work really well if you've got a really good moderator team, and that's part of the issue, is that you've got to keep the list itself vibrant, and once you get it moving, it kind of they either self-sustain themselves for a while, or at some point they drop out because there's just issues with activity. That continues to be my concern about Google communities. Is I'm concerned about the interaction, but they're getting there, maybe, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, I also must admit that I share that concern. And when I saw a couple of posts this week, I saw some people who were promoting some of the really biggest communities. And what my concern is I'd like to see some smaller communities grow. And I don't see a bigger initiative to push a lot of smaller communities. And I think what would be really cool is, I saw everybody joining like the photography community, or the musician community, but what will be really cool to see is people with obscure interests finding each other and creating a little community. Like, I did see a group of people who are nurses starting a nursing community.
And I think that's true as well. I think one of the problems, though, is people are worried about these little communities. Right now, the way the system is set up, they're worried about what they have to say in these communities leaking out, and they don't like that. So I saw somebody who created a community on fin swimming. I have no idea what fin swimming is, but he said he created this community, and when he realized that all of his posts to it were leaking out, he destroyed the community because he didn't want them. It was a public community, and that's fine, but he didn't want to clutter his profile with them.
When you say leaking out, they were showing
up on his profile, and he understood.
Public?
Yeah, it was a public community, and he understood. He understood that it wasn't going out to people's streams. He understood that it was just showing up in the profile, but he didn't want a cluttered profile. That was his concern.
People are weird.
Well,
why does that matter?
Well, but it's a privacy thing.
It's
and
not.
That's very valid.
It's just keeping things organized and being able to easily. I mean, like, an argument could easily be made that you want to be able to see, all your posts that you posted to the stream in your profile, and not get cluttered up by the stuff that you're discussing basically inside the communities.
I really don't understand that.
Most of the people.
I understand it. I also understand why other people don't understand it.
Most of the people who I've talked to have said, and not all of them, but most of them have said they wouldn't mind if these posts showed up on another tab on their profile or showed up in another section on their profile. They just didn't want it in their the post stream part of their profile because Google seems to be differentiating between community posts and stream posts for everything else except in this one location. And it was confusing to them. They were worried it would be confusing to people who were looking at them to figure out whether they wanted to circle them or not.
Yep. And let me say something that's an even bigger issue. They changed the YouTube interface like a week or two ago. Did anybody notice? You go to YouTube and suddenly it's like big white space, so it looks again like Hangout.
Ronnie, did you notice?
Yeah, they changed it the same day they came out with Communities on the 6th.
Yeah, and so I looked at it and I was literally like, what?
It's too anesthetic.
Antiseptic? Yeah, it reminds me. That's a good word for it. But I looked at it and
they've already said that they're going to be putting things in that area, just like the white space stuff for Google+. It's just in process.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even, my first response was not even like a gut response to the design. My first response was they focus so much on the design and not like the functionality. And part of this is why
I disagree.
I really feel that Google Plus is so difficult to use. Like, new users sign up, and it's still a difficulty with integration and functionality. It's still difficult to get people into Hangouts because there's this technological barrier that's been there since day one, and they cannot get over it.
There's a great video that the YouTube team did explaining why they made the changes and how they did all the studies and how they found out that new users actually can embrace it more easily the way it is now than it was before.
Oh, yeah.
It's a
And
really
do you believe it, Ronnie?
I do, yeah. Like, for example, the basic thing, like, for example, there used to be a title on the top and a subscription button on the top of a video, and now they're all below. And they're just saying, here's real basics. When you watch a video, the next thing you do is your eyes move down. And so then you would potentially hit subscribe or see the title, whereas otherwise you might never go up to that subscribe button that used to be above. So they're doing it much more towards the understanding of subscriptions to channels so that people can understand the channels are behind the videos. And apparently that wasn't obvious to people. So for the new people, they're now really what they call channelizing or channelization of YouTube is what they said they're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
So do all the people here in the Hangout, do you see people coming in to Google Plus and using Hangout, new people at all?
I'm going to turn that around slightly, and I'm going to say we've got a massive number of people who are following us on YouTube. I want to hear what their comments are to answer that question. But until
are we talking YouTube or are we talking Google Plus? I mean, you're kind of mixing the two. I'm fine with the mix because I focus a lot on that. But what's the topic we're focusing on here?
Well, I think the question is, is Google Plus going to be getting people coming from YouTube because of this integration? And I'd like our YouTube followers to answer that because we have a lot of people who have found us from YouTube. So I want to take theirs. Anthony brought to my attention a really good question that we had on YouTube, speaking of which, and I want to bring it up now and answer it. Can a page be a moderator of a community?
Yes.
And I answered, absolutely. I even suggest that you should. And this is something I touched on an hour or two ago now. Yes, pages get a little special treatment, in fact, if they create a community. I strongly, strongly recommend that if you're going to create a community, create a page for it first, have that page then create the community. Then you can appoint yourself as a moderator, you can appoint other people as moderator, that's great. but have the page create the community. There's a lot that you're going to be able to do with it if you do if you go that route.
That also solves a big issue in my mind of what's called double posting. I mean, you can post public from your profile, and then you can share that post as the page into the community. That's a little trick I've been doing.
That's an interesting one.
I need a description of that, Ronnie. I missed that. That's complicated.
If the issue is, let's say
graphics for me.
Okay.
We've got our first reply to Monica's question, I think. First of all, Kevin agreed with Ronnie. YouTube is easier to use than ever. I don't know. I'm still lost on it when I try to use it. But he then says people don't go into Hangouts because they don't want to appear on video. It's that simple. No, I think it's much more complex than that. Yes, that's part of it. That's part of it. That's certainly part of it. I'm not going to disagree.
It's probably the largest part, I think, the biggest part. People
I don't know.
Not comfortable.
I've seen a lot of people try to get into Hangouts and fail because it's so complex to get started with.
It's complicated to figure out how
Yeah, but there's this psychological reason of being in front of a camera. A lot of people on YouTube never, ever, ever will make a video with their face in it and upload it. They're just there to watch.
I'll tell you right now that I'm uncomfortable with being on video. In this particular Hangout, I'm comfortable with being on video because I largely know it. I've come to know everyone in this Hangout, and when a new person, joins the Hangout, I have the opportunity to meet that person at a relative pace that I feel comfortable with. But I would completely agree with the statement that people are afraid to be on video because they don't know people, and I mean it's like walking into a room with a group of strangers and not knowing a single one of them. I mean, at least the very first time and the time after that, and probably even the time after that. So you're unfamiliar with the situation.
I mean, I think Google has started. I mean, since the beginning, they've been pushing though that Hangouts are a family thing. You're going to hang out with your family, your friends, with people that you know. They pushed that a lot from the beginning, and I expect to see a lot more of that. As we're entering the holiday period, but I still feel like there's just this technological barrier that people keep running into.
Well, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with the technological barrier, but the problem with the trying to push it as getting your families to come together through this video chat, which is definitely very definitely something that's very good and feasible. But the problem is that family members are not on Google Plus, and I think that we touch on this every single week. I'm on Google Plus. Well, I'm a bad example. All my family members are on Google Plus, but I'm also a good example because even though all my family members are technically on Google Plus, I'm the only one that still actively posts on Google Plus, and various members of my family actually did early on actively post, but they've fallen away. And like my one brother, I have two brothers, but my one brother fell away real quick, and then my other brother, who's technologically advanced and he's like any of us in this Google Hangout as far as technology goes, he posted a lot, but even he has fallen away, and he'll make maybe at most one post a month. So the problem with that is the families are not on Google Plus, and even when they are on Google Plus, they're not actively using it.
Right.
Yeah, and I I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, and I was actually writing a lot about this week, because this is one of the things that Google just really refuses to get and has refused to get for months at a time. And I feel like there's so many different aspects of this that they don't get because it's like it involves so many different psychological aspects. Like you mentioned, Anthony, they want to market it as hang out with your friends and family. But number one, your friends and family aren't here. The reason this platform has taken off is because you share things that are funny images or great GIFs or whatever, or news stories that go viral.
Or fantastic interaction on topics that you can't find any of your family and friends that are interested in discussing in some depth.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I think
then,
each of
like,
our experiences are very different. I don't share funny GIFs. I don't do that at all, and I still have a lot of people engaging.
right.
Don't do
But
that.
whatever you share, like the whole Hangout thing is different. And it's also technologically complex, and they never made the first thing that they should have made when they started promoting Hangouts, which was an introduction video. Every single time you joined a Hangout, it should have said, "Welcome to Hangout. If this is your first time using Hangout, here's an introductory video. Click here to like have a tutorial of how to use Hangout, or to explain how Hangout works.
I'm not even sure that would have helped, because I don't think people would have gotten that far.
I agree, Alan. The Hangout concept is so complicated to discover that it's not at all.
Not really, because when I talk to people on the street, or when people see me doing this, like when I'm in the hospital, like what I tell them is, I say, it's like Skype. And they go, "Oh, okay, you're Skyping." That's like, then they get it, because they know what Skype is.
That just helps build up the brand that Facebook already bought. And so one day Skype is going to turn into Hangouts on Facebook. And if Google doesn't take advantage of the time frame they have, well,
see,
they're
Michael,
Did they buy them, or Microsoft bought them, right?
people,
Yeah,
though.
Microsoft owns Skype. They just made a deal with Facebook. Yeah.
Microsoft.
I've tried before to say Hangout, and I can't say Hangout because they don't get it.
They don't know what it is.
I just call it a video chat.
People failed at marketing this, and it's because they don't listen to their user feedback.
Right.
Like, I've tried before to tell them, like, if you want this to succeed, you have to basically do things like make this optional tutorial video. And
But
number
Monica,
two,
you're saying it's not succeeding. I would disagree wholeheartedly.
but Ronnie, you are
I'm
the
focused a lot
typical
on
user.
Sure.
You live in Hangouts, and so does everyone in here.
I would disagree with you, Monica. Ronnie Binser, and I think he would agree with this statement, is not the typical user.
And
He's
I
a
can-
power user in and out.
And I can tell you that Anthony and myself do very, very few Hangouts. This is probably my only Hangout that I do on a regular basis. I don't like being on video.
You guys are still very technologically savvy.
I only play someone who's technologically savvy because I read the articles before the show. I really have no idea what I'm doing.
But
the fact that you're wearing a headset,
last
and
comment
that you're
from
using
Monica.
a webcam, like
There's a thing called Hangout Lite, right? Which is basically you can be in Gmail without being in Google Plus, and you can get into a Hangout, which I call is the gateway drug into Google
But
Plus.
even before that, you had the Google Talk video, and almost nobody used it because it was complicated to set up and difficult to use, and really it was just one click. But it was still too difficult for some people to use. Now, I think that's going to be changing soon. I think as the new web standards for video really get moving, really get adopted, really get integrated, and really start working, it's going to be far easier.
Can I say something real quick?
Go ahead, Pam.
Last word.
My husband is going to be gone over Christmas, and he's going to take his laptop, and we are going to do a hangout from his cousin's house for actual Christmas.
Good.
So that I can participate. So that should be fun.
Okay, so
right there is a perfect example.
we want to go to our final thoughts, and Ronnie, you can append you can revise and extend in just a moment. Let me start with Sarik, who is lounging in his very noisy, wonderfully child-filled home tonight. Sarik, what are your final thoughts on to close this week?
I'm just wondering, why are we worried about people figuring out how Hangouts are going to work or anything? Well, I honestly think that video chatting or video phone calls, and maybe 10 years back, people said this is the future. You will have phones. You just sit in your room and you talk to your friend in Saudi Arabia on your TV and all these things, the freaking bandwidth of this country has to go a long way before you actually have that kind of communication or writing, right? Hangouts are good. The adoption of this kind of technologies is gonna only happen when people who are not very tech savvy, according to a lot of people here, figure out that, oh, I can just start a Hangout for my TV, just press this button and I'm hanging out with my friends or whoever. Unless we get to a stage where we have gigabit internet or whatever across the country, like your electricity that flows into your country and you don't even know that it's there. Till then, there's no point talking about this.
Okay, and one last question, then we'll go to Ronnie. Sarik, we had a private conversation, but I don't think you would mind that I share this. You said that you hugged your kids today more than you ever have. You want to tell us what was going through your head as we learned this horrific news?
Well, I don't know. I mean, today when I think I was away somewhere. I don't know. I was servicing my car or something. That's when I saw it on TV in the service center, and the guy sitting next to me was like literally shocked. And he said, "I have 2 kids." And I said, "I have 2 kids as well." And then he was so angry. We went on a tangent about gun control and all these things. Then I said, let's forget about that for the moment. Let's see what's happening here. And then my wife called me and she said, "Are you watching this?" I said, "Yeah, I saw that." And she's kind of shivering. And then the news came out that the shooter went into a kindergarten class and killed all the kids there. Just before she went to sleep, she said, the bodies of the killer as well as the kids are still in the school, and parents are still waiting outside. And then she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go sleep with the kids now." I don't know. So what I'm trying to say is, when I came back home, kids were not back. I actually picked up a little one from the daycare and I came over. And then I held them together, and they didn't have a freaking clue what's happening, right? So they're like, "Can I play with your iPhone?" So I'm like, then I said, "You can do whatever you want." I gave him my iPhone, I gave him everything. And earlier today, Jeff was saying, "You have background noise." I said, "Well, I can't shout at them today. I can't."
Yeah, it's horrific. But you love your kids. I have the pleasure of having a wonderful dinner and with your children and your wife and your family, and it was great. So that's awesome. That was a great comment you made, and I appreciate it. Ronnie Benser, what are your final thoughts on this Google Plus week?
I'm amazed and overwhelmed, and I usually can keep up. So this has been one heck of a week as far as trying to keep up with all the changes in Google Plus and in YouTube, all coming all at the same time. I'm doing what I can to keep up, but I've also got extra community action going on, so I've been having a hard time sleeping.
Vic was a heck of a tease, wasn't he? He put something out saying,
he said he can't sleep last night, right?
I can't sleep tonight, something's going on. And then 18, there's like, "Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I have to revise this post because we actually have 24 things coming out." It was crazy. It was awesome.
So even if it was just today, that would seem like a massive amount of stuff coming out. But this has been all week.
Yeah, it's remember that post? One of the media organizations, I think we talked about it. They said that Google was innovating faster than Apple now, and I think they each have their strengths, right? Google has the data, Apple has the UI experience, but I think that that gap is narrowed. If you look at iOS versus Android from years ago to today, the gap has dramatically narrowed to where it's even. I mean, I watched a video with Chris Perillo looking at the Note 2, which is the phone I happen to have. I think I may have mentioned it in the past, but he was talking, that basically it's not like one's better, or it's like, what features do you want? What ecosystem are you in? What are you used to? What is the minimal learning curve? But they're both sort of on a par now. But okay, Pam Adger, my beloved Pam. Any witty final thoughts? Perhaps if you unmuted your microphone.
Sorry. Okay, it's unmuted.
Final thoughts on this Google Plus week.
A lot of changes. Other than today, the week was good. Today was really tough. I not looking forward to all the gun control posts and memes and stuff already starting. But yeah, it's should be a very interesting coming up week. Really nothing witty. Sorry.
That's okay. It wasn't a witty day. I enjoyed corresponding with you back and forth all day on all these posts I put out. Yeah, it was horrific. Michael, my buddy Mike Ellis, you got kids, right?
No kids.
Oh, okay. So, okay. What are your closing thoughts on as we close this week, experiencing this wonderful experience that is Google Plus?
Well, it's been a great, exciting week for all the Google Plus and YouTube enhancements. I'm really struggling to keep up with everything, way more than all of you, because I'm learning from everybody on the panel about what features come out. I always hear about them from you guys, which is great for me. The news in Connecticut is tragic, and I have nothing more to add to that. It's just sad.
Yeah, that sums it up. And I'd never seen Monica. I don't know if you saw President Obama today, visibly shaken and actually twice wiped tears from his face as he gave that speech today, speaking as a parent and as a president and just as a human being. What are your final thoughts on this Google Plus week?
Yeah, I actually, I shared a couple of posts about the tragedy, and I was trying to, one of the posts was, I used to work as a nanny and a tutor. I've worked with many children over the years, and so I was trying to, give advice to parents as to how to, if their children have seen a lot of the media coverage, and my best advice is to basically turn it off. But if you speak with them to try and explain that, sometimes bad things do happen.
Hey, Monica, there's actually a really good post that someone put out about how to parent in a 24-hour news cycle or something like that. I will tag you.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah. And
you can read it, and then if you read it and then decide it's nothing, then just move on.
Okay. Well, I've also got one on my profile as well, and I think that we can all agree that sending good thoughts to the families is a good idea, because it's definitely a horrific situation. I think that I have some optimism about communities, but like I was saying, and I think I said this last week as well, my main worry and concern around Google Plus continues to be Hangout and the integration of Hangout with communities, but Hangout in general. My real life friends continue to be distrustful of Hangout as a platform. And what they actually do is when I suggest, like I say, would you like to hang out? What they actually do is I've had a couple of them say, I won't hang out, but I will Skype with you. And I have actually said a couple of times, why? And what it's come down to is they have said that they don't trust Hangout, but they will trust Skype. And partly it's because of the moderation control and the lack of moderation control in Hangout, and because they feel that anybody could pop in at any time into Hangout. And because of the design, it's confusing and that sort of thing. And so that's one of the things that I feel that the people who work on Hangout should know, that though we're a group of extroverts who enjoy meeting new people, that a lot of my real life friends have this concern and complaint to the point when, like they're offered the choice of 2 video chat platforms, they will actively go, I will only go on Skype. And so like that tends to be like my main concern going forward. But I do see a lot of value in communities, and I'm enjoying it so far. So, I see a lot of good going forward.
It's an exciting time. We've seen so much because Monica, you and I, and most of the panel here were in this from the beginning, and we've seen dramatic improvements and innovations and changes,
Yep.
and it's exciting. So that's awesome. Anthony, you were in the news this week with, or recently with, or your town was with the Kodak patents and stuff. What are your any final thoughts on Google Plus Week?
I don't think that I really have anything else to add that the rest of the group didn't. I guess the only thing that I would say is that when, one person gets killed, it's probably not going to get noticed. But when like 2 people get, killed, it's going to, it might get noticed. And when, you start, when like maybe 5 people get killed, people get very upset about it. Maybe when 10 people get killed, people start getting infuriated. But when you kill just one child, the level of infuriation and anger and questions and that those type of thoughts just become exponential compared to if maybe 10 adults and maybe a mom get killed, and it's you don't even know what to think when a child intentionally is killed by another person.
What's interesting is we are, of course, mammals, right? And different mammals have different behavior. This is an instinct. The reason we talked about this today, Pam and I, we were trying to understand it. It was very difficult. I said, not flippantly, but whatever. I was sort of in a post 9/11 days walking around. I was literally shocked. I think Pam got sick. I had not, and I posted about this, and I got a lot of really interesting conversation on this post from my friends and folks who look at my posts. But who am I getting feedback from? This is driving me crazy. But it's an instinct thing. Different mammals react. Certain mammals are born ready to go. Certain ones need to be, held and cared for. And as human beings, when infants, we know, need to be protected, right? And so it is your instinct. If you were sitting in a restaurant and there was an infant in a high chair who, and someone knocked the high chair over and it was falling to the ground, everybody who saw that would, without any regard to their own safety, on instinct, would leap out of their chair to save that child, right? To protect that child. We know that. That's why we find cute cat pics funny, cute baby pics funny, because it's in our instinct to want to nurture and care for these kids. And it is so, I'm trying not to lose it. It's so frustrating. And it makes you angry and makes you to see this happen. And the reason we were all impacted more than that awful movie theater shooting, similar to 9/11, but it touched us because we all care for these children, and these are 30 sweet, innocent children who were in what was supposed. I'm sorry. They were in.
They're in what was supposed to be
the safest place, Pam.
Safe. Yeah.
They were supposed to be safe.
Yep. That's right.
I think the president said this is a place where they're supposed to be enlightened, and I'm sorry. I don't know. I posted, and it's the truth. I can't remember ever being impacted by a news story the way I was, and I've seen a lot of stuff. I've covered dead people, motorcyclists hit by a car across, in multiple places. Weird
Yeah.
stuff, but this really hurt me. Anyway, let me go to Alan,
Well,
and then Pam, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and
No, I wasn't talking.
Okay, let me go to Alan.
Dan, I think one of the things that is most difficult about this story is its extreme randomness of the and the hurtfulness and the vengeance of the killer, and he picked the most innocent targets because he was going after his mother, and then he also took out innocent lives in the process. But one of the things I think this speaks to is the need for mental health services in our country. Like, for years and years and years, we have had just basically inadequate mental health services. And it's got to change.
Okay,
It's
you're right, and that's one of the many issues we've seen. So this will be analyzed over, and there's no, I don't know. Let me go to Alan for his final thoughts, and then Michael Banks after that.
I guess my final thoughts this week are actually not on that subject. Thinking about it, there was a big app release on iOS this week. It was incredible. It was awesome. It's an app release that I have been waiting for quite literally for over 10 years, and that's Flux. And I want to give a shout out to my friends who have released this app on iOS. It's awesome. I've been playing this game for years, and I'm glad to see that it's made it to iOS, that they've made it to the big time. And I can't wait for them to release the Android app. I know that, and part of the reason why I don't want to talk about the other subject is I'll get choked up, and my way of dealing with things is to take a step back and think about fun times and fun things that I do with my friends, fun things that I do with my family, and to cherish them. And Flux has been for me one of those fun times, one of those fun things. And I know as soon as we're done here tonight, I'm going to be signing off and go spending some time with my family. And that's just kind of where I want to keep my head. That's how I keep myself together.
Awesome. And I apologize for killing the vibe earlier. And we wish you happy flexing.
Flux.
Flux. I said flexing. I
like
just created a
soldering,
verb, right?
like soldering flux.
Absolutely. Michael Banks, you brought up a story. Tell us how your Google week went, and tell us about this nice gesture that Google chose to do today.
Let's see, Google Plus Week. They had, a lot of updates, a lot of stuff. I challenged Google to do just as much, if not more, next week, so we can correct some more stuff, so we can put Alan to shame for all his negatives that have not yet been corrected with a lot of Google products. But as far as Google,
it's been a year and a half on some of them, so I'm not expecting them next week.
That's the challenge. Some stuff with communities at least. But Google earlier today changed their website to add a candle, and the candle says, "Our hearts are with the families and community of Newtown, Connecticut."
And Dan, if you could cut to Ronnie's screen, I believe he's got it up for us.
I've got it up.
And if you hover over the candle, it'll show the wordings.
Yeah, I've got it up. Yeah, that was a nice gesture, and Google, like everyone else, was trying to figure, how do you deal with this? But anyway, it's been a rough day, right? What's so sad is it was so joyous earlier because we we're so excited about the new features and kidding around, and Vic posted that thing 18 and then 24 new features, and then this thing it came out, a shooting, and you immediately your heart sinks, right? And then you find out 2 dead, 3 dead, and then you find out this horrific ending. I remember we're a lot of us here are fans of The West Wing, and there was a scene where the president there was an attempted they were shooting at his aide, and there was a line when they were recovering when the president and when the aide first found out the reason they were shooting at him. He said, "We don't know the final victim count," or something along those lines. We don't know the final number of casualties here. And in this case, all of us have been walking around like zombies today, and it's been awful. And we feel the pain. We can't empathize with what it's like to lose a child, but we can sympathize. But my God, as I'm saying this, I'm shaking and I'm upset. I don't have kids, but my God, it's awful.
I think what it is, Dan, is that it's times like these when we realize just how much communities, and I use that in a real sense of the term, how important those communities are to us. Because they're the people that we turn to when we need comforting. They're the people we turn to when we want to talk about issues. We're not necessarily looking for solutions. We're just looking for people who will be there with us when we get bad news. And I think for all of us here, that's what Google Plus has become. It's become a real community with real people, with people who will be there for us at good times and bad times. And this is where we want to be when we hear news like this. And I can really think of no better way than to end Google Plus Week on that kind of a note.
All right, awesome.
Yep.
Okay, well, for the viewers, thank you, and we'll all be following everything. And I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for watching us live or afterward. Either way, we are live on YouTube Live and Google Plus every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern USA and 5 p.m. Pacific time. And
can I?
Yes.
Can I actually ask one thing? Before you go to bed tonight, just make sure that you tell each person in your family or your life how much they mean to you, because we literally don't know how much time we have left. So, you may just never say it, but just today, just say it this one time.
And on
That's
that,
my request.
And on that, I want to wish all of our viewers hugs out to all of you, especially those of you who are parents who've had a very rough day and are trying to figure out how to tell your kids about this incident. I want to wish all of you a very wonderful Google Plus week.